You are live. Woohoo! It's always good to
I'm
be
alive.
live.
Yeah, I'm recording.
That's
Excellent. Well, the three of us here are alive and live on the show. And our producer is lurking in the background, watching us very, very carefully to ensure that we don't say, yep, she's got her glasses on, she's using a telescope or binoculars or something. I don't know.
A microscope, yeah. She'll need it to see you, Jeff.
Oh, because I'm so svelte.
Yes.
No.
You're almost as svelte as I am there, Jeff.
Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment.
Robert's in there. Hi, Robert.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Hi. And Mayman Micah. Thanks for your suggestions, Mayman Micah. It won't fit there, though.
Okay.
I've tried sticking it there, but it won't fit. No, seriously, thanks for your plain tale suggestions, Micah.
Okay.
The other suggestions I'm ignoring.
Selective ignorance.
Yep.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. All right. We don't have Roger. I didn't give Roger enough time to do the intro for today, so I'm going to do it, and then I'll, in the audio, we'll have Roger's professional introduction for the show. Let's see. Looks like we're getting ready to do the clapboard. Okay. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 411. Hello? What are you laughing about?
Oops.
I put my nose. Nose on the guillotine here.
In 3, 2, 1. That never ceases to make me laugh. Steph is not with us right now, but she intends to join us later. She will. She's still at work, and I'm sure she'll be advising us as we go along here when she is on our way home. So what we're planning on is we're starting it early so that Nick doesn't have to stay up so late.
That's very kind.
We'll get, isn't that?
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And
it's only like taking you a year to work that out.
And so what we're planning on doing is doing the news, and then we'll get to, hopefully she'll be home by the time we're doing our getting to know you segment. If not, we may just at some point just do an intermission and kind of wait for her to join us. And then if it gets to the point where Nick is falling asleep, we'll tell him to get out of here. We'll boot him out and tell him to go get some sleep. And then Steph will be taking over for the rest of the show, if that makes sense. So that's our plan anyway. Now we have some private chat. What's going on there? Oh yes, good point. Liz says that we could do the PT, the plaintail, earlier as well. Good idea.
Yep,
in fact, I think you mentioned that the other day, didn't you? And I have promptly forgotten. And that was just yesterday, so that shows you how sharp this brain is inside this cranium.
That's what happens when you get a little bit older.
What'd you say?
What'd you say, Sonny?
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn. Yes, pesky kids. Okay. So that is the plan, and we have our recorders going, and let me just do a sound check to make sure that...
Well, we got Daniel in there who's transitioning to the 737.
Oh,
good luck with that, Daniel. Have fun.
Yeah. Very good. Transitioning from what? Seattle and Alaska. Maybe he was flying the Airbus? Because Virgin America was flying the Airbus, so maybe that's why he's making the 7.3 transition. Maybe. I don't know. Elaborate, Daniel. Okay, and just a reminder to those of you who are watching the show live, we are in two places. We are in the default location, which is YouTube Live, and there's a chat room there. And we're also on Facebook Live, and there's a chat room there, basically. A way you can communicate and comment. We see all of it, but if you're in the Facebook chat, guess what? You're not going to see the YouTube chat remarks, and vice versa, unless we highlight them. We have a way of highlighting chat comments, and that way you can see what is going on in the other chat room, sort of
Like that.
like that. Okay.
Curtis Wagner.
Curtis Wagner. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let me do this sound check here.
You're listening to.
Wow, that's too loud. To me, anyway. That sound pretty loud to you too?
It wasn't much of it, but no, I'm not
Okay.
deaf.
All right.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
Yes, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it can't go by me because I'm not hearing anything perfectly.
Okay.
Yet, so
Yeah.
it's very
Sorry,
soft.
Dana.
Everything's soft to me. No pun intended.
That's what she said.
That's not what I really meant by that.
Well, I'm sorry to
Right.
hear that, Dana.
Yeah, we need your recording this week, Dana.
Okay. Y'all ready? That's a good one.
No.
All right, that's going. And here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode. No, that's Steph's intro. I hit the wrong button. Damn.
Nice one.
No, I was just
Thank
kidding. I
you.
was hitting the keyboard. Obviously, I hit the wrong button. Button. There we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 411.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters studios. Today's show was recorded on the 4th of February, 2020.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Would you ride and he's flying by with the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, recent Airbus A350 engine shutdowns linked to spilled drinks, another de Havilland Dash 8 nose gear collapse, more news, your feedback, and this week's plane tale, the Airman's Cross. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions, electronic devices powered on. Flight 411 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. We've been aviation podcasting on the APG for more than 10 years, and we cover the latest in aviation news, and we try to cover your fantastic feedback. And joining me from his studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF RAAF fighter pilot, retired captain for an international airline based in London, it's Captain Nick.
Well, good evening, Jeff, and thank you very much indeed for this extremely civilized start time. That's appreciated. Looking forward to the usual 50% show.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And joining us from the Northwest Atlanta suburbs, barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pleasure boat skipper, underwater photographer, and captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier, it's Captain Dana. Captain Dana.
Well, if I hit the right speakerphone here.
There we go.
I'm a little rusty, I guess. Hey, great to be back and looking forward to a fantastic episode, especially this episode when we'll be giving you the 411 and everything.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear how that cruise of yours went.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And now it's time for us to get right on to, well, why is that still playing? Here we go. Now it's time for the news.
Stand by for news.
All right, from flightglobal.com. A350 engine shutdown incidents are linked to cockpit drink spills. Airbus and Rolls-Royce are investigating 2 incidents in which A350s experienced uncommanded in-flight engine shutdown after drinks were spilled on controls situated on the cockpit center pedestal. Flight Global understands that the airframer is to discuss the matter with operators on 30 January, so that was just a few days ago, and will issue a transmission on recommended practices for handling beverages on the flight deck. One of the incidents involved a Delta Airlines A350-900 en route to Seoul on the 21st of January, which diverted to Fairbanks after its right-hand Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engine shut down, while a similar event occurred to another carrier in November of last year. Some 15 minutes before the Delta shutdown, Flight Global has learned a drink was spilled on the center pedestal between the 2 pilot seats, primarily on the integrated control panel for engine start and electronic centralized aircraft monitor functions. The right-hand engine shut down and the crew attempted to restart, which was unsuccessful, and the crew chose to divert, subsequently landing safely in Alaska. Flight recorder analysis showed the electronic engine control had commanded a closure of a high-pressure shut-off valve after inconsistent output from the integrated control panel. The previous incident on the 9th of November 2019 occurred about 1 hour after tea was spilled on the center pedestal. Again, another shutdown of the Trent XWB engine. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I was kind of curious about how something so new, and I think we even talked about it on the show, like how is it that we're already having issues with these brand new engines, and now we kind of understand why.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not surprised that they've had a problem after a liquid spill on the center console. It's just like throwing liquid over your computer. To a certain extent, that
I've done that
thing. Yeah, I know.
I think we all have.
recommend trying
Yeah,
that.
exactly. That whole thing is just like one massive keyboard, that entire area. And if you put a liquid spill over it, well, it'll be moisture resistant to a point, but eventually it can seep down and cause one of those mini micro switches down there, or element switches, or in this case, a major fuel switch to malfunction. So the very simple answer to this, and a procedure that was strictly enforced in my outfit, was you never pass any liquids over the center console. If someone comes in and wants to pass a liquid cup, cup of tea or something to you, they have to go around the back of the seats and pass it to you in the gap between your shoulder and the window. So there was never any chance of liquids going over the center console. And I was a bit of a stickler to it because I'd had 2 first officers spill liquid over the McDo. That's the main sort of data entry box. And it's a multifunction box, so it can affect radios, it can affect ACARs, it can affect navigation, all sorts of things, and wrecked them. So, luckily you've got 3 on board, so you can carry on if one goes US. But it's just a pointless, stupid thing to do. Just thoughtless. So, and they're damned expensive. If it came out of your wage packet, you'd be sure you'd never pass it over the center console, pass a drink that way.
Why not take some of that plastic cling wrap and just cover the whole pedestal there?
Good idea.
Good.
I personally, I think they could also make a better effort to protect the switches. It's certainly internally, if not externally. Externally is
Right.
a bit difficult, but I think you could have a higher standard of waterproofing. But I don't know. You'd have to ask the manufacturer about that.
Okay.
I think so far we're lucky. It's only been 1 engine.
Oh yeah, just imagine if both are gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because now, again, you're just a vote in the cockpit. So if the computer overrides you, it's all over. And that is a micro switch. That's a electronically driven micro switch. That thus is, if it's shorted out, it's all over. The game over. There's no way to override it.
Yeah, apparently the only way that they were able to, I think in both of these incidents, they were able to restart the engine once they had landed. So there must be some kind of a ground shift linkage issue involved with that as well. I don't know. Maybe the system resets itself once it gets on the ground. I'm not sure.
I mean, Jeff, our ACARS unit gets so hot that if you spilled any water on it, it'll boil right off real quick anyways.
That's right. Just a quick timeout. Dana, can you turn up your gain all the way?
Is that
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That was a huge difference. Thank you.
how's that better? Right there. Is that okay right there?
Well, a little bit higher.
A little bit higher, a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Problem is the way this thing's working right now is I'm
it's
getting
like-
me like full blast and I can't hear you guys.
Okay. Say something, Nick.
I'm going to say something now.
So you can come down a little bit, I guess, Dana. It's just going to make it a little bit easier for me in the post edit to make sure everybody's
How's that better?
same level. That's better than it was. Okay.
So Micah in the chat room reminds us we talked about this, a similar sort of thing in September. And at that time, we both recalled the film Fate is the Hunter, which is a really old black and white movie of airplanes that were, of the 707 vintage, where supposedly exactly this happened. An accident occurred and they discovered it when trying to recreate it, that it was the cabin attendant spilling coffee over the center console. But yeah, it's full of electronic stuff and you really don't want to mix it with water.
Luke Langbing is one of the people that sent in this article. He said that he thought we might find this interesting. And have you guys ever spilled anything on the controls/avionics? Only our private computers. That's what we like to spill things on.
Yeah, I've never spilled anything on the avionics. Thankful.
And is there a protocol at your airline if that happens? Not really, that I can think of right offhand. Dana, I don't think we have a protocol.
I can't think of anything either. I mean, I can see where this might be going. That kind of Nick's procedure with his airline, or you're not allowed to drink anything in the flight deck anymore, which would be, I think, catastrophic.
I can't see that happening. He also asks, should Airbuses be provided a fake yoke so pilots can pretend like they're flying instead of using the empty surfaces as footrests and buffet tables? Now, to be fair, I don't think, at least in the two incidents that we're talking about here, if that really was the issue, I think it was more of what Nick was saying, is like maybe somebody handing the drink over and right over the top of the central pedestal and it spilling. Wouldn't you think? I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah. There's no real way to rest a drink on the center console. And funny enough, all the places where you tend to rest your feet, Airbus have very kindly put rubber bumpers so you can rest your feet on them. Like at the front of the center console, for the guy who's sitting in the jump seat, there's a nice big long rubber bar that he can rest his feet on the center console, use that as a footrest. In front of the pilots, there's a couple of quite high stirrups that you can hook your feet into and just change your position and have your feet off the floor for a while if you want to lie back, etc. And on the left side, which is the safe side, there's not much down there. You've got cup holders and trays and all sorts of things if you want to put stuff to one side. Just absolutely no reason to use the area of the center console.
Very good. I'm still trying to get the picture out of my head of the high stirrups and
oh, there's like birthing stirrups. Yeah, they're like
wonderful.
a pair of birthing stirrups. That's exactly what they are. And you can actually pedal them up and down because they sit recessed, and then you tap them to your feet, and you can just bring them down and just hook your feet into them. And I used to go along and pedal them like, well, let's make this thing go faster.
You pilots are so funny. Okay. I think we should move on to item B, unless there's anything else to be said about the spilled drinks in the
just Ken Hayes. Do Airbus pilots need sippy cups? In my belief, we all need sippy cups, quite honestly, Ken. If you look at the all the people walking around America with hot coffee for anywhere in the world, they've all got cups with, just sippers on the end. And that's an ideal way to go because it's very hard to spill from one of those, certainly in any quantity.
Dana?
Yeah.
No, I thought you were going to say no. What I thought he was going to say what I'm about to say, which is that at our airline, the pilot cups, and they're called pilot cups. They're styrofoam, so they're not they're not perfect, but they're a little bit larger than the normal throwaway recyclable kind of cup that you would get in the back of the airplane. So it holds more, and then they also come with these nice lids that basically a sippy cup setup. So every time I ask for my coffee and they say, "Would you like a lid?" and I always say, if I say no, I'm sure to spill it all over myself and probably all over the airplane. So yes, go ahead and put one on there, please.
Well, that's because you drink coffee. I don't drink coffee. I just drink those bottles of water that
Okay.
have the screw top on it. So
Yeah.
even if it falls over, it's not a whole lot of water being spilt anywhere. So
Well, you're a very
No.
smart man, but I need my
Oh, that's right.
caffeine.
I used to have my my own Starbucks plastic refillable mug. I used to hand them that, and on the side I'd write how I like my tea and coffee. And
your
they
women.
thought, yeah, all
sorry.
the cabin crew thought that was actually quite neat because they said, "Oh, so much easier bringing this into you," because they're all terrified of spilling on the flight deck, just as we should be, but they're more so because they're just a bit wide-eyed, particularly the new ones,
Nick,
and worried about it.
did I hear you right? Did you say you write on the side how you like your pee in your coffee?
And tea.
Oh, pee. And I mean tea?
Tea.
I thought you like certain
Tea.
type of pee in coffee.
No,
Hmm.
tea.
That's a little-
You say that again?
A little
Tea.
odd. I think we're getting it. T as in tango.
Yes.
All right.
Tango Echo Alpha.
Or
My
Twinnings. Or is it Twinings?
TWAT.
Is it pronounced Twinnings or Twinings? I don't know. That's a tea company that we have here in the States. I thought it was in the UK as well, but apparently not. All right, moving on. Item B, update. The NTSB issues 10 recommendations after Embraer ERJ 175 pitch control incident. Oh, I meant to ask one of our community members about this before we talked about it on today's show, but I've neglected to do that. Oh, well. We talked about the ERJ 175 that had the control issue taking off out of Atlanta International Airport back in November of last year.
Yeah.
Well, the captain and first officer later reported that they both needed to use both hands to counter the airplane's nose-up pitch motion, and that doing so involved such effort that neither felt that they could reach for the QRH to troubleshoot the problem. Ultimately, the flight crew was able to trim the airplane with the first officer's trim switch, returning to Atlanta and land the airplane safely about 15 minutes after declaring the emergency. The NTSB issued 6 safety recommendations to the NCAA of Brazil, National Civil Aviation Agency, and 4 to the Federal Aviation Administration. The recommendations are designed to address areas of concern, including wire chafing, application of Embraer service bulletins related to the pitch trim switch, and potential limitations and checklist memory items for pilots to address unintended operation of the pitch trim system. Although the cause of the incident remains under investigation, post-incident examination of the airplane revealed chafed insulation around wires connecting the horizontal stabilizer actuator control electronics to the captain's pitch trim switch and autopilot/trim disconnect button. The chafing was caused by contact with the incorrectly untucked pigtail of the forward mechanical stop bolt safety wire. When the captain's pitch trim switch was removed from the yoke, marks were observed that indicated at some point before the incident flight, the pitch trim switch had been installed in an inverted position. Embraer previously issued 3 service bulletins related to pitch trim switch installation error following reports from flight crews in 2015 about flight control system difficulties. However, neither the FAA nor the Brazilian agency required incorporation of the service bulletins. While it is not yet known if inverted switch installation was a factor in this incident, the NTSB is concerned the condition could lead to flight crew confusion. Yeah.
Well, funny old thing.
No kidding. Delaying appropriate recognition of and response to increased control surfaces. So, interesting. That would be very, very confusing if you're manually flying the airplane and you're trying to pitch down and the system is pitching the stabilizer up. That would not be good. But My problem with this is that this is not the first flight of the day for that airplane, and I think it had flown several flights since maybe maintenance had worked on the pitch trim switch. They don't really go into that much detail, but I'm thinking it seems to me that somebody would have noticed that the thing was wired backwards, wouldn't you think? Unless captains are routinely just immediately turning on the autopilot shortly after takeoff and not even knowing whether the pitch trim switch was wired inverted or backward.
Does it even say it just says it's installed.
Well, I mean, okay,
So
that's what I mean.
maybe the switch itself is, and I'm surmising the switch was installed upside down but wired correctly. So instead of it saying, when you push it trim down, it says trim up, which if somebody's reading it is pushing it in the wrong direction, but the actual function was working in the right way.
But then why did they have the uncommanded or uncontrollable situation?
The wire got chafed.
That would be the chafed wire. I
Okay.
guess.
Well, that seems more reasonable to me. Yeah. Than the actual.
Yeah, I think Dana's got a good point there because after all, it's just a two-way contact switch. The actual trimmer, it's how you connect it at the back of the switch depends on which direction it will trim when you move the switch.
Right.
Not necessarily which way up the switch is, but that's an interesting point. You'd hope in this day and age, anything that could be fitted upside down by accident would be designed so that it couldn't.
Right.
Murphy's rule.
And then I would assume that I know that on Dana and my airplane, we always check the trim to make sure that the trim is working in all the ways that we can actuate the trim, and it's also working in the proper direction.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because of course it wasn't ever an Airbus thing because we didn't have.
That's right. Trim. You guys aren't able to trim, right?
Well, we have a manual trim,
but I mean, you don't. It's not normal.
No, the aircraft trims itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So our system is, we check the switches on the yokes, and we check the suitcase handles, the fast trim on the center console, and the slow trim on the center console. So
1/3 degree per second or 1/10 of a degree per second.
Oh, I didn't know that. Ooh, you get extra points for that. Let me find the bell.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Ding.
Yeah, ding. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was going to also say that
useless stuff that's still in my brain from teaching.
That's great stuff. I like that. I also was a bit surprised that they didn't have a pitch trim runaway. My apologies for my loose tongue. I'll just put it back in again. Okay. A pitch trim runaway as a memory item, because all the aircraft I flew with manual pitch electrical systems, it was a memory item on how to disable that and recover from it. And if that wasn't the case on this aircraft, I'm a bit surprised.
I know they did have a pitch trim runaway QRH or bolt face or whatever you want to call it, but I'm not sure that the actual part where you disconnect the trim system with those two switches on the center console were included in the first items of the checklist. I can't recall.
All right.
Anyway, but I'm sure that
just to verify what you're saying, Nick, is the same thing with us. I mean, we have a procedure, and there was a procedure at my former carrier as well.
Yeah, that's what I would have expected.
Yeah, so the item about, well, they weren't sure they could let go of the yoke and grab the QRH. Well, you shouldn't have to grab the QRH if it's part of your checklist. I don't know. Maybe
memory
it wasn't.
item.
Yeah. But I think Captain Craig, he flies the airplane, so maybe he can fill us in on whether or not if that's part of the what do they call it? Memory items. Thank you.
Immediate action items.
Yes.
Checklist.
Okay. Let's move on to C. We have an update regarding the C-130 Coulson crash in Australia. And actually, it's not us that have the update. It is Juan Brown of Blancalirio YouTube channel. And he has, I'm not gonna play it here. I'm just letting you know that he was able to get some eyewitness video of the airplane after they made their fire retardant drop, and it kind of flew into, or it appears to fly in to the smoke of the fires kind of downwind. And you can kind of just barely see it through the smoke, but it looks like it just stays level, and then it starts descending, and then it just finally hits the ground, and you can see the fireball and everything else. And he talks about the fact that a lot of times these fires can actually make their own weather system. And so, combine that with a tailwind and extreme downdrafts and updrafts caused by the fire may have just, they may have gotten themselves into a situation where they couldn't fly out of it.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good analysis, and interestingly, there was also a heightened speed readout. I'm assuming from, I don't know, ADSB or something that they had managed to acquire, which showed that the speed dropped off significantly before they hit the ground. But it was one interesting comment, and I would love to have heard him expand on it, which was that they were, when he was doing this job, they were generally told to, if they could, release in a descent rather than level. And he said these guys were doing it level, but he didn't explain why, because my instinct as a pilot would be, man, don't really want to point the aircraft at the ground unnecessarily. I'd much rather be going level or up when I do this. So I was just curious to know why he wanted to release in a descent.
Or did he say that when he was learning how to do this kind of maneuver, that they were releasing down slope? In other words, down slope terrain wise. So that
it might have been a terminology thing then. I'll have to re-listen and see whether I picked that up right or not.
So that in that sense, it kind of makes sense, because the terrain that at which you're pointing is descending and not rising in front of you. But
having said that, terrain that goes down inevitably has some terrain that goes up just after it.
No, it just keeps on going down.
That'll teach the flat earthers.
Yeah, yeah, but you're right. Not releasing into ground that's climbing in front of you, I think that would probably be important. So.
He always amazes me. His experience, his background is like, what else has he done?
Oh yeah, he seems to have done absolutely everything, doesn't he? A little bit of everything, but very good.
We're going to talk about him in just a moment. In fact, let's just go ahead and skip to that because we're talking about Juan Brown and the Blanca Lirio channel, item E, and then we'll go back to D. There is an update on the Kobe Bryant S-76B helicopter crash in Southern California, and another one that we recommend that you watch and listen to because Juan has a friend, and his name is Scott Monroe, and he had Scott on, and he's a professional helicopter EMS pilot, and had some really, really good insights as to what he thinks may have happened in the helicopter crash that killed 9, including Kobe Bryant and Kobe's daughter and others. And I thought, wow, I mean, it's really interesting perspective from his point of view, and we recommend again that you watch that. And there's another item here that refers to that's it, a New York Times article that I included here in the show notes, and the headline of this article I think is extremely misleading. It says helicopter in Kobe Bryant crash wasn't legal to fly in poor visibility. Well, not actually technically correct. They weren't legal to fly in instrument flight rules because the company didn't have a certificate to operate using IFR or instrument flight rules. They were flying in very poor visibility. We talked about the VFR and special VFR visibility requirements, and so that is a little bit misleading. But we're probably thinking that for most people that read the New York Times, if they see they weren't legal to fly in IFR, they would go, "What the heck does that mean?" So I guess they were trying to maybe dumb it down a little bit, but. Yeah. When the helicopter carrying the basketball legend Kobe Bryant crashed into a fog-bound mountainside on Sunday, killing all 9 aboard, the pilot who was struggling to avoid the clouds did not have the legal authority to navigate with his instruments because the aircraft owner did not have the necessary federal certification. And as we've heard from several different sources, most of these companies, especially in Southern California because of the weather, almost all of them operate only under visual flight rules, not instrument flight rules, because they really don't need to fly in instrument flight rules at all. I mean, it's a very rare or uncommon situation that they would need to do that. So,
which would add another extra layer of cost in keeping efficiency and keeping the aircraft up to IFR standards and et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Funnily enough, I was listening to Opposing Bases today, their show that's just come out, and AG, an experienced helicopter pilot, made a few comments, and I was trying to relate this to the sort of conditions that I might meet if I was flying. I did a lot of low-level flying when I was a Hawk instructor, and we'd be beetling along, and the weather could easily be quite poor. And if we ran into bad weather, we couldn't turn around, go the other way, or find a way through it. We would do if it was unexpected, we'd do an emergency pull up, pitch the aircraft with full power, 30-degree nose up, check the speed brakes were in, and climb the aircraft at a very steep angle until we got above the safety altitude. And he was saying, of course, when you're flying in very poor condition, a helicopter, you'll have slowed the helicopter down, and you'll be flying along, with poor visibility at slow speed and low altitude. And if you then go India Mike and you lose sight of the ground, you have to climb, you're actually in a pretty poor situation. And I was going, oh yeah, you would be, because the last thing I would do in a fast jet is slow it down because the visibility is bad. And if anything, I'm going to speed it up because I know I might need that energy to pull for the moon if I lose sight of the ground, just in case there's a brick wall in front of me. So the fact that, in a helicopter, you naturally start by slowing up to, increase the time it takes for you to reach something, gives you a real problem if you go in a cloud.
And it appears that, based on the data that we have from this crash or this accident, that at the very end, it looked that like he was trying to do just that, trying to rapidly climb to get above the cloud, and then also transition from VFR or visual references to the outside to instrument flying. And I would imagine all the various forces that your head would be experiencing at that point would be very difficult for somebody, especially if you aren't super proficient in IFR flying or if you haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, good stuff.
More to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, check out the Blanc Illyrio channel. It'll be in the show notes. Nick, would you like to take this item D, please?
Oh yeah, most certainly. This is very sad, but it's nice to be able to recognize this chap. It follows the death of one of the few remaining Battle of Britain pilots, Wing Commander Paul Farnes, DFM, who had reached the age of 101 and had been fit enough last year to attend a service of commemoration. So he was doing amazingly well, but of course how fragile life is at that kind of an age. He was a tall and distinguished man with striking silver grey hair that he retained throughout his life. Lucky man. He was also known for plain speaking and was very generous with his time. From what I can gather of Paul Farnes, he'd wanted to join the Navy in the Second World War, but a friend persuaded him that the RAF would be far more fun. And so he joined the RAF Volunteer Reserve as a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant, and subsequently flew in the Battle of France, which he described as a complete shambles. He was covering the Dunkirk evacuation, and then he flew during the Battle of Britain. And indeed, on the last day of September, whilst flying his malfunctioning Hurricane back to Kenley, he encountered a Junkers 88 flying directly towards him, but he managed to get behind him, open fire, and brought it down, even though his own aircraft was having a few problems. He was still a sergeant when he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Medal. That's the equivalent of the DFC, which is only awarded to officers. but he was very proud of his DFM. And during a recent interview, he said that he wouldn't swap it for 2 DFCs. He was promoted eventually to become an officer, and he served in Malta, North Africa, and Iraq. And by the time he reached the end of the war, he'd flown Spitfires, Mustangs, and Hurricanes, and was an ace, having shot down 6 enemy aircraft, 1 probable and 6 others damaged. And his tally included bombers such as the Heinkel 111 and fighters like the Bf 109. He was commissioned during the war and commanded 2 squadrons. And at the end of the war, he remained in the Royal Air Force, not retiring until 1958. By that time, he was a wing commander. Now, during the Battle of Britain, the RAF only had 3,000 pilots, of whom 544 perished during operations at the time. And now there are only 2 left alive, sadly.
Wow. 101. Wow.
Yeah, remarkable, man.
And what a service record.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
absolutely brilliant, isn't it? It's lovely. But they're getting fewer and fewer, and it's so sad, but inevitable, I'm afraid.
Yep. Well, yeah, inevitable. We lost another one. You said 2 are still remaining?
Yes, we do. Yeah, there are 2 still left alive, but they're both 100. So I don't know how long they're going to be around.
Probably not a long time.
No.
All right. Well, thank you. Moving on to F, which is, I think it was the last episode we talked about the.
Oh,
yeah, we
sorry,
got some great.
Jeff. I should have mentioned that piece was sent in by Rich. I just blasted straight into it. Rich, and he asked me if I'd ever had the chance to meet Paul Farnes, and the answer is sadly no.
Oh well.
But thank you for sending that in, Rich.
Yes, thanks, Rich. Okay, item F. I think it was last episode we talked about the Q400 nose gear collapse. And in fact, we had some great audio feedback from one of our community members, Fabian, who flies the airplane. And guess what? Yet another Dash 8 problem with the nose gear. WestJet de Havilland Dash 8 registration, Charlie Foxtrot Kilo Whiskey Echo, performing flight. Fuckway. 3107. I'm glad it wasn't Fox Kilo Mike Echo. From Vancouver to Terrace, British Columbia. Never heard of that. With 42 passengers, 4 crew, landed on Terrace's runway 33 at 2106 local time, but suffered the collapse of the nose gear and came to a stop on the runway. The passengers disembarked onto the runway and were taken to the terminal. And the airline reported a partial nose gear collapse. And again, that's the only data. There's a picture of it with its collapsed nose wheel on the runway. And not sure if this incident was another one of those wheelbarrowing things where you touch down on the nose gear first, or perhaps maybe some previous flights had done so and the thing had held together long enough until this flight. And then when this crew was flying it, when they put the nose wheel down, it just collapsed.
You know,
sorry, Dana.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm just wondering, and this is just, I have a really good buddy of mine that now flies the Spirit. You've met him. It's my buddy Dave. Love this airplane. Has a lot of experience with this aircraft. I'd have to reach out to him, but I don't ever remember this airplane ever having this particular problem on a regular basis at all. So I'm just wondering if it's not one of 2 problems. One, they're just becoming stressed because of all the the short hops that they do, and the lack of, maybe there's not an inspection program that's really looking at it closely enough, and maybe not finding cracks in the nose gear, or whether it might be that there are a lot less experienced pilots flying the aircraft now, and the way that it it performs, if you're not careful with a slightly nose low attitude, as with the CRJ 200 too. Same type of attitude in the approach, without the leading slats on the leading edge. I'm wondering if it's not also possibly more stress on the nose gear because of the way that the aircraft is being flown by less experienced pilots on a regular basis. just
could be.
just a couple guesses, and I don't. There's no basis for my my summary or analysis, but certainly there's possibility there.
I mean, I think that either of those could be factors, and I'm wondering if I'm not seeing a lot of incidents of maybe it's just a beefier nose gear assembly on the CRJ 200, but I don't recall seeing more incidents of nose wheel collapses on that airplane. But
The 200's notorious for the mains collapsing.
oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
they've had a lot of issues with the mains. They had to go back. I don't remember the specifics on it, but I do
Mhm.
know they probably had to go back and do some type of modification because they had a lot of. I remember, I think 1 or 2 instances at ASA alone that we had collapsed main landing gears.
Well, we just thought we'd mention this latest nose gear collapse on the WestJet Dash 8 just for a data point, and we're kind of keeping our eyes and ears open to see if this is going to be a trend, and perhaps we'll be able to find out whether either of those scenarios are a factor that Dana just mentioned. We're going to skip G because I'm kind of hoping that Steph will be able to mention this one. If not, if she's not here by the time we are getting close to the end of the news segment, we'll go ahead and cover it at that point.
And she says she's on 6 of the 7th patient right now.
6 of 7. Okay, that means it's probably going to be at least another hour before we see her on the show. So, yeah, we'll just, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just make the assumption that she's not going to be back in time for the news segment here. So I'm going to go ahead and cover it. Sorry, Steph. This accident is a My Cargo, not yours, My Cargo, 747-400 at Dammam, I think. I'm not sure if that's the way you pronounce that or not. And Jeddah on the 1st of February, 2020. Tail strike and on departure. A My Cargo Airlines 747-400 freighter on behalf of Saudi Arabian Airlines registration Tango Charlie Mike Charlie Tango, performing flight 919 from Dammam, Saudi Arabia to Zaragoza, Spain, struck its tail onto the runway during departure from Dammam's runway 16 right. The crew stopped the climb initially at 7,000 feet, later climbed to flight level 100, 10,000 feet, and subsequently decided to divert to Jeddah. The aircraft climbed to 15,000 and further to 18,000 for the flight to Jeddah and landed in Jeddah without further incident at about almost 3 hours after departure. The aircraft is still on the ground in Jeddah about 21 and a half hours after landing. That is when this was actually written. So it has some pictures here of the tail scrape on the back of the 747. Definitely some pretty significant damage. And our good friend, Miami Rick, and host of the Airline Pilot Guy show in absentia, was tweeting about this. And as he is wont to do, he provides a lot of information to folks who follow him on Twitter. If you want to follow him, it's at Miami_Rick. And so he starts off with this breaking news item which we've just covered. And then he says, there are various cross-checks and verifications in place to prevent this potentially fatal error from happening. And one final tried and true method I've used ever since my early days of airline flying is to learn to gauge proper acceleration. How, you ask? This works in every jet, big or small, heavy or light. The moment you select takeoff thrust, simultaneously start your chronograph. I don't know. Do I have one of those? Oh, he means a clock. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he certainly has a chronograph.
Yeah, he has a huge one. That's
Yeah.
what she said. If your numbers are spot on, you will always reach 80 knots by 20 seconds. That's balanced field. Not every takeoff is so. You'll usually get 80 before 20. So 80 knots at 20 seconds. This gives you an idea of whether the aircraft is adequately accelerating, and if it isn't, you are still very much in a position to make a low-energy reject, taxi off, regroup, examine, and try again without getting the brakes hot. This will save your life, or at least save you a trip to the chief pilot's office. And then somebody responded, what is a zero fuel weight figure? Plane with cargo but without fuel? And then he says, the weight of the aircraft, freight, passengers, crew, and operating fluids minus the fuel. So basically what the airplane weighs, everything except fuel. What do you think the chances of a hull loss is with such an old airplane? He said, careful cost and benefit analysis will very likely take place and a decision made based on the outcome. Certainly sad to see a beautiful bird have her wings clipped before her time because of such an avoidable situation. Anyway, another person replied saying, isn't it that pilots just set the throttle levers to the same takeoff thrust regardless of weight? Acceleration and runway used will be a function of weight, field, altitude, and temperature. Am I missing something? He says, no, thrust setting is a function of weight, runway length, airport elevation, obstacles, weather conditions, and other factors. The idea is to use as little thrust as necessary to preserve engine life and because statistically, an engine is much more likely to fail at or near max thrust. And then somebody else said, do you think pilots reject takeoffs too infrequently? And he said, it's not a question of frequency, it's a matter of safety. One of the factors the captain weighs is the decision to abort the takeoff, or in the decision to abort the takeoff, is whether the airplane will be unable or unsafe to fly. If so, a reject is warranted, but oftentimes the safe course of action is indeed to fly. And then finally, Ken Hoke, we all know him here on the in the aviation podcasting world. He's also goes by his tag at AeroSavvy, at AeroSavvy. And he says, what Rick said, in the sim, they fail stuff at different phases of takeoff. Captain quickly decides to reject or fly. Boeing has guidelines to make it easier. Here's a fun one. Captain's window slides open above 80 knots. At UPS, we continue and close it when safely airborne. And that's the same procedure at Acme. Thankfully, it's not happened to me yet, Dana. The window sliding open during the takeoff roll.
Does that mean, does he mean automatically opens at 80 knots? What is it?
No.
Keep the captain awake or something?
No, I think that he's saying like a scenario. Here's a hypothetical.
I'm joking.
If you fail to lock the window, and then the air loads as they increase open the window for you. Then you continue to take off roll until you.
Wait a minute. No, there is a switch on the console that says automatic window open. So maybe he just accidentally hit that. Just kidding.
So basically, Rick's saying that I'm guessing by the tone of his thread that these guys used the wrong thrust setting for their weight.
If you're reading between the lines, it seems to be what he's saying. I'm not sure though.
Well, I would certainly say that would be a major cause of tail strike, as well as, of course, environmental conditions.
Oh, you know what?
CG shift.
It would have helped if I had read the very first tweet that he made. I skipped it. He says, when this happens 99 times out of 100, it's because the crew used an erroneous zero fuel weight figure to calculate takeoff thrust figures, which results in slow acceleration, long takeoff run, and panic pull to get the jet airborne before the pavement runs out. Very expensive. So yes, to answer your question, Nick, I think that's what he's saying. And I should have read that right off the bat, and I didn't. Sorry.
That's all right. I think one of the things we should probably discuss, though, is their decision to continue on for a 2.5-hour flight and their decision to climb the aircraft to flight level 180, because even, we on the Airbus had a tail strike indicator. Eventually, they sort of retrofitted one after a few tail strikes. But if I had suspected there was a tail strike, I think there are two actions I would not do. I would not go away somewhere else unless, of course, the airfield I took off from had lousy weather or a very short runway or some very good reason why I couldn't go there. The second thing is I wouldn't climb above flight level 100. Both of which this crew seem to have done.
Because out of concern for the fact that you may have cracked pressure bulkhead. And
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And you don't. I mean, we've had major accidents. Remember that 747 that the Japanese airlines,
Yep.
I think, was still their biggest passenger loss ever.
Mount
Was
Fujiyama.
was a failure of the rear bulkhead, and which severed all their hydraulic lines.
Mm.
And you just don't want to put yourself anywhere close to a situation like that. So my feeling would have been dump and land, and then take a look at the damage if it was insignificant, which of course it wasn't.
Right.
And I find it a bit surprising that the crew didn't realize that. Certainly, if they'd listened to the cabin crew in the rear galley when they got it, well, they probably would have told them.
Yeah. Apparently, it makes quite a huge noise when this happens in the very back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know what the crew were thinking. They're trying to make the best of a bad deal, but I don't think that was a particularly wise decision.
Good point. Good point. All right. We have an update on the Fokker 100 crash, Beck, the airline at Almaty or Almaty. Is that what you said?
Almaty, yes.
Almaty. On the 27th of December, they lost height shortly after takeoff, and it was suspected that icing could have been or may have been the problem. It turns out that in the information that we have at present, the decision was made by the captain to have the tail, the stabilizer, the horizontal stabilizer de-iced, but not the wings. And they made a zero flap takeoff, which I guess is common for this airplane. So let's see, I have highlighted here. Before departure, all necessary procedures were carried out. Well, not all. The stabilizers were de-iced. The wings were not processed as they were clean. Well, for those of us who have seen a wing covered in clear ice, guess what? It looks really clean if you're looking at it and not doing any other procedure to determine whether or not there is actually ice on it. At the first liftoff, the aircraft climbed to about 5.5 meters. The speed decayed. The angle of attack increased. However, the aircraft descended onto the ground again. They hit the tail a couple of different times. And in fact, some point, I think the first officer said reject and pulled the power back. And the captain said, took the throttles and pushed them back forward again and said, no need. Continue. That was a fatal decision on his part. Okay, reading down a couple of paragraphs here. Prior to departure, de-icing was only partially applied. The commander decided to not de-ice the wings.
But that's a question that kind of pops in my mind. What was the FO looking at that made him decide that while they're in a takeoff roll, that he wanted to abort the takeoff? And
they were already airborne. They were already airborne and hitting the runway. I'm guessing
the way the aircraft was feeling the wing drops and
I'm thinking back to Air Florida now. I'm thinking the engines aren't performing nearly, and the icing conditions may have not been providing.
Well, it was a super long runway, and I think they were not even halfway down that runway when they started lifting off to begin with. So I don't think it was the engine issue, but I'm not sure. They're still doing some investigation on this. But here's some really good juicy stuff. On the 20th of January, Kazakhstan's CAA reported that the examination of the airline found a number of severe violations with respect to airworthiness of their fleet, the condition of which was generally described as poor. The CAA reported, amongst others, coupled with this, the most serious safety finding is that Beck Air has removed component data plates. These data plates have serial numbers to help track hours and cycles. This practice means the identity of engines can no longer be verified, and that hours and cycles attributed to that engine no longer provable. Several engines with this problem have been identified, which casts doubt on all aircraft engines operated by Beck Air. In addition, Rolls-Royce, the manufacturer of the Fokker 100 aircraft engines, reported that they have received no information about the overhaul of these engines since these aircraft were put into operation in Kazakhstan. Rolls-Royce also further informed the Aviation Administration of Kazakhstan that there is no procedure which would require the removal of a data plate, nor would Rolls-Royce authorize such a procedure. During the inspection of video evidence at Almaty Airport, it was discovered that the Beck air crews usually do not conduct a walk around or a wing check as instructed and required in the Beck Air's operations manual. No walk around, no wing inspection.
Wow.
In the
There's a lot, isn't it?
I know.
What?
In the Fokker 28 through 100 aircraft operations manual, it clearly states that the aircraft wing must be checked prior to each flight. And unusually for aircraft of this type, the manual specifies how this check must be done. This procedure was introduced as an airworthiness directive, after the 1993 crash in Skopje, Macedonia. The clean wing check requires a tactile check of the wing at 3 points along the leading edge on the upper surface, the lower surface, and the front of the wing. The manual states that if there is ice present, then all critical surfaces must be de-iced. Reviews of video footage of preparations of Beck Air aircraft do not show that this check was ever completed. Training records show no evidence of winter operations training being conducted. No training syllabus was produced to show that crews are trained to identify and treat ice risks for this type of aircraft. And then finally, just the final bit of drama and intrigue from this accident. On the 28th of January, Almaty's health department announced that the first officer of the flight has died. The first officer had regained consciousness on January 5th, left intensive care, was treated in a special department. On the 21st of January, he had been discharged into home care. An emergency call was received from his home on January 28th, reporting rapid deterioration of his condition. Emergency services rapidly arrived on scene, found the first officer was suffering from cardiac arrest and attempted resuscitation, however, to no avail. Wow. What a weird series of events on this thing. The other interesting thing was that initially when we were covering this, very few people were reported as having fatal injuries on this accident. And the captain did. Of course, if you look at the pictures, you can see why, because that part of the airplane, that part of the cockpit slammed into a brick building. But the first officer did survive initially, and then they just listed a few fatalities on it. But now the number has really rapidly increased. I forgot exactly how many now they're saying actually perished in this accident, but it's a lot of weird things to make you kind of.
It now says 15 people have died as a result.
Probably the lack of the advanced healthcare availability in that region.
Might have something to do with it, yeah. But can you? And Dana, I don't know if you'll remember or not, that the initial accident report we looked at, when the people were using the overwing exits to get off the airplane, they all reported that the wing was extremely slippery, like it was covered in ice. So
I mean, easily slid. They could easily slide off of it. No problem evacuating.
Yeah, but my point is, I think that they're pretty sure that it was
There's ice on the wings.
ice on the wing that caused this accident.
And if you got the de-icing gear out to do the tailplane, what the hell's wrong with doing the wings at the same time?
Maybe
why would the tailplane be affected and not the wings?
Was he like thinking, well, it costs so much money, and it does cost a lot of money to de-ice, and maybe I can save the company some money?
Well, that's kind of not his job.
I mean, if you're not going to at least go out and walk around the aircraft and take a look at it, you'd think you'd go ahead and have the wings and tails de-iced anyways with the conditions they had.
Yeah, you'd think.
It's prime for icing.
I know. It's crazy.
Ugh.
Yeah, sad. So many people died senselessly in this accident.
Gustav in the chat room is asking an interesting question, saying, couldn't someone invent a gadget to detect ice? And of course, we do have a gadget that detects ice. It detects ice when you're airborne by vibrating a little probe. And if the frequency of those vibrations changes because the detector has got a buildup of ice on it, then it brings on a warning in the cockpit, amongst other things. But those don't work on the ground. No, and if you can get up and have a look, then you don't really need a detector on the wing. It's an added complication. The idea is that the crew are supposed to be responsible enough to go and take a look.
And Dana and I are very familiar with tactile wing inspection because on the
sure
airplane
are.
that we fly, it's required anytime we
All
are
right.
de-iced. Yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and if I'm going to the airport in the morning, one of the first things that I use as my first clue whether the aircraft may or may not have ice on it is whether there's frost all over the cars sitting out in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually my first clue. Second clue is, of course, go out and do the walk around in the aircraft and look at all the equipment outside, even the jetway. If the jetway has ice or anything slippery on it, that's my second clue. Third clue, of course, is going back, take a look at the wings. And the fourth clue is having the FO doing the walk around, or myself. I do walk arounds, check the wings. And if it's any question whatsoever, then you have an upper wing inspection. So, I actually do all those steps every single time I go out. And of course, the first one, looking at the cars. Well, if I'm already at the airport, obviously that's irrelevant. But these are all the things that I use to clue myself into. All right, do I have the possibility of ice on those wings out there?
Yep. Good
And
stuff.
also, especially because this is one of the things that we've had problems with, is looking inside the engine cowl. We can't do that. You can kind of get to the back of the aircraft and kind of look into it, but if and where the problem is generally is when the aircraft is sat overnight and there's unknown snow precipitation that happened during 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it could accumulate. Well, if you look at the cars that are sitting out in the the parking lot, either at the hotel or even at the airport as you're driving in past where the long-term or short-term parking lots are, you can see snow on the vehicles, generally speaking, because they never get warm. So that gives me another idea of whether I need to have an engine inland inspection. So these are just things I think about as a captain as I'm driving the airport. I don't know why this guy didn't think any of these things.
I think at some point in this article it said that they are where they normally operate their flights. They hardly ever encounter winter conditions and icing conditions, but that's no excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, they should be fully versed in these kind of procedures if that airplane or that airline flies to these destinations. Okay.
So let me guess, you guys don't get many cabin crew requesting shots of them sitting in the engine intakes then?
Not very many. No, it's kind of hard to get to the. Let's see, zero so far in my career.
That'd be a big goose egg there, Nick.
I love it. I use that all the time.
Yeah. All right. Now that happened, when I flew the TriStar, but since then, no.
Well, I bet you they don't got into the number 2 engine.
No, that's although it looks having seen that S duct in on an airplane in the hangar with it all opened up, it would be a fun ride, like one of those slides,
A great idea.
like a big sewer pipe, huge actually. All right, moving on to I. An Avianca Costa Rica Airbus A319-100 registration 703AV I had an N number registration. That's unusual. Performing flight 693 from San Jose, Costa Rica to Bogota, Colombia, with 108 passengers, 5 crew, was en route at flight level 370 about 150 nautical miles southeast of Panama City, Panama, when the crew decided to divert to Panama City due to an upset causing injuries on board and a cockpit indication. The aircraft landed safely in Panama City. About 30 minutes later, 6 passengers, 2 cabin crew were attended to by paramedics. The airline reported that the crew had received an alert on one of the aircraft systems. During the flight, an abrupt movement of the aircraft occurred. The crew diverted to Panama City. We already talked about that. Mode S data transmitted by the aircraft showed the aircraft at flight level 370 at about 488 knots over ground as it crossed the coast into Colombia. Within a minute, the aircraft turned about 25 degrees to the right and descended to below flight level 350. Another minute later was in a significant climb above flight level 350 to near flight level 360 at 410 knots over the ground before settling on flight level 350 another minute later. The speed over ground continued to fluctuate between 412 and 516 knots. Whoa. That's a big fluctuation. That's over 100 knots. Until it settled at 449 knots about 6 minutes after the upset when the aircraft had turned 180 degrees to the left and was on course to Panama City. Passenger photos show a cabin ceiling cracked by impact, blood stains on the cabin ceiling, a destroyed lavatory, and debris all across the cabin. A meteorologist reported there was a lot of gravity wave turbulence in the area.
What is gravity
What?
wave
Yeah, I was
turbulence?
just going to ask the same
Okay.
I've
So-
never heard of that.
You'll notice the very right below the photo there. Do you see that little PDF file?
Yes.
Yes. Well, if you click on it, I had the same question. What the heck is a gravity wave? And there's a nice article from Aviation Safety something or other. I'm not sure if that's actually what ASW stands for or not, because I'm not looking at it at the moment. But talks about gravity waves. And here, I'll give you the bottom line. It's basically like mountain wave. Any kind of a wave that is caused by a physical feature, like a mountain, and the air, being lifted over the top of the mountain and settling. And if you fly here in the United States, in the western area of the continent, all about mountain waves. Now we know that that's one type of gravity wave. So there were pilot reports in the hour prior and after the occurrence indicating moderate turbulence. The meteorologist commented, "This looks like a pretty big altitude deviation due to the turbulence alone, but not impossible." Okay, so it was Flight Safety Foundation that put out this paper, a good explanation of gravity waves and their impact on even large aircraft. So yeah, I did the same thing you guys did. Like, what? What's gravity wave?
I've just done a quick speed read, although it's quite a long article. And yes,
Yeah.
you're quite right. It's just a different name for mountain wave.
Right. And I guess mountain wave is like a subset of gravity wave. I guess there must be some other types of gravity waves as well. But we're not trained meteorologists here on the show. It's hard for me to say that word. Yeah. So if you want to learn all about gravity waves, ITSN, check it out. And
yes, you're right. Well done.
And then finally, Dana, you want to take this one?
Sure. This airline that's a sister airline to us here in Atlanta, Delta Airlines, is going to design its uniforms because the employees have filed a lawsuit complaining about allergic reactions to the new purple garments known as the Passport Plum. The Atlanta-based Delta spent millions of dollars rolling out this whole new uniform line about a year and a half ago, but there have been a lot of grumblings from the employees regarding rashes, skin reactions, and other symptoms, which have been indicated by the lawsuit are caused by chemicals used to make the garments waterproof, wrinkle and stain resistant, anti-static, and high stretch. So there are about 25,000 flight attendants and about 12,000 airport and customer service agents. But apparently, there's a different way of a treatment on the garments of flight attendants. So the airport employees haven't been having too much of a problem with it. Because of the problem, they have initially had started out with the requirement of an OJI certification for the exemption to be allowed to wear their own black and white attire instead of uniforms. But that has grown into the thousands because of the fact that they dropped that requirement and they just have to indicate now that they are having a reaction to the uniform. So they are now in the process of redesigning the uniforms. In the meantime, they're also looking at creating a gray uniform with a different set of without the chemical treatments on there. But they've gone through some significant testing to see what was causing the problem. They haven't been able to come up with that at this point. Pretty much that's about it. It's just they are, Delta is getting to the point that they want everybody to be in the same uniform, have uniform appearance for the product image, and so they are working on redesigning everything without a chemical finish, so that way people are not having as much of a reaction to it. That's pretty much summation of it.
I think that Delta did a really great job of handling this situation at the beginning, saying, well, obviously a very small number of people are experiencing symptoms, rash and respiratory problems and that kind of thing, headaches. And so they said, okay, well, if you are and you're like especially sensitive to the finishes or whatever, then go ahead and, do your own thing. I guess they must have given some kind of guidelines because I've seen, because we a lot of times we fly to the same locations that Delta does at Acme. I've seen flight attendants walking around and they're wearing black uniforms, basically black and white. But they look nice. But I think what happened was that more and more of the flight attendants decided that they wanted to do that as well. And now I think it just finally got to the point where they said, okay, we need to do something else here because we're not, the flight attendants are not in a identifiable uniform anymore. You see somebody walking. In fact, I don't know about you, Dana, but I've seen some flight crews walking around in the black and white uniforms, and I'm thinking at first I'm identifying them as pilots because our at Acme our pilot uniforms are black mostly. And
Well, and that also poses a very significant question when you're going through TSA. I mean, you're not in a company-sponsored uniform,
mhm,
and the biggest thing about this is the black and white pieces are not technically a company-issued uniform. It's actually pieces that they're allowed to under certain guidelines to wear.
right.
And so it becomes a security issue as far
Mhm,
as TSA is concerned, but also as a pilot. I mean, I can imagine if I was flying for that company, if I turn around and I look at somebody and they don't have their crew ID badge on or the the name wings, if it's just a black and white sweater, I mean a black sweater with a white shirt underneath it, I have no way of identifying if that's a passenger or crew member.
right. I
So
was wondering, when I heard about this initially year and a half ago, I was wondering if it was the same company that made the American Airlines flight attendant uniforms. That they had a problem a couple of years before this happened at Delta, and turns out that I think that they're different companies. I think,
yeah, I don't think Land's End was
yeah,
involved with it.
I think it was like Twin Hill or something like that. I just did a quick search to see who made.
Mind you, they could be both sourcing the material for the
That's
uniform
true.
from the same stuff,
Could be,
same
could be.
place.
I mean, the basic what it comes down to is, I mean, they tested for a lot of different agents on the uniform for being hypoallergenic, and the bottom line is they did treat these uniforms with chemicals to prevent them from make them more waterproof and more wrinkle free, and prevent them from adhering stains, and make the uniform in the fabric and material look far more nice for for
Hmm.
work and in working environment for a longer period of time. But some people are just environmentally not going to be able to accept that chemical on their skin. So I think I agree with you, Jeff. They've handled it quite well, and I think they're going to continue to move forward with it. Even though the flight attendants, of course, what the Association of Flight Attendant Union applauded, and of course. The Delta flight attendants are not unionized, but they're using this kind of a stepping stone to try to get the flight attendants to look at that again. And that's what I read at the union. That's why I'm kind of reading between the lines at
Right.
the end here, because they're talking about pay and benefits and et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
So I think they're trying to use that as a ploy as well. But I think in the big scheme of things, Delta is handling this as a true situation, and they're going to spend a lot of money to revamp the uniforms again.
Yeah.
So, as a sister company to it, I have to applaud them for what they're doing, how they're handling it.
Yeah, they almost have to do it because of the threat of the flight attendants group becoming unionized. They have to really make sure that they do this right so that the flight attendants are happy
How
with the
long has the
response.
uniform been out?
Year and a half,
and
I
a half.
think.
Yeah, I mean, if they do put out a new uniform, at least it'll go on, and hopefully they won't have to have another cycle for a little while. So.
That's
yeah,
true.
and I'm wondering, Nick, and that's an interesting point. With them coming out with the gray version of, which the males already have an option on, the female flight attendants do not. The gray versus the purple, and they're not going to chemically treat it like they treated the Passport Plum. I think that might resolve some of the issue. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, good.
Interestingly, Main Man Micah says, I think Land's End is up there in Maine.
It is.
And he says that there is a connection between the company that made the American Airlines flight attendants uniforms and the company that made Delta's flight attendants uniforms. So, could be. Now, I think, personally, I'm thinking that some people are more sensitive than others are to these kind of chemical treatments. And I think that legitimately a very small number, had issues. But then when more and more people are showing up to work not wearing the uniform, I think it might be a little bit of a psychosomatic kind of thing where they think, oh yeah, maybe there is something wrong with these things, and so I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm wondering if that is a factor as well. I don't know.
Sure. And the Main Man Micah corrected us because he is correct. LL Bean is in Maine, and Land's End.
I knew
is
that
in
one of them was
Wisconsin,
up there in Maine.
which is owned by Sears, as a matter of fact, as he mentioned. So,
okay.
it would be interesting if they offered the same color without the chemical treatments on it. I would wonder if that would be a fix that they could look at, because maybe I really believe it's probably the chemical treatments within the fabric and on the fabric that are probably causing reactions.
I think you're right. I guess we'll have to just wait and see how this all works out. All right. Well, I think I need to find my soundboard so that I can play this. Getting to know us. Not exactly the lyrics for that, but we made it through the news segment. Yay. And we're still waiting for Dr. Steph to arrive at home. I think
she
is
stabbed her
on her
last
way.
back, and she's on her way. Yeah.
Oh, she's finished doing her back stabbing for today.
Yep.
Excellent. So hopefully we'll see her pretty face in the video soon. But in the meantime, we can talk about what has been happening with us. Now, it hasn't been that long since our last show. What was it, Thursday of last week? And now we're doing this on a Tuesday. So I'm going to go ahead and leap in first, because I really haven't done hardly anything. Just my normal things involved with music at my church, and also the Super Bowl game on Sunday night. That was I thought was a very, very good game, very exciting toward the especially in the second half, when Kansas City came back to become victorious in the outing. And of course, it's always interesting to see the commercials and halftime show and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't get to share it with anybody else. I didn't go to a party or anything, but I had fun watching it myself anyway. So, and that's it pretty much for me. Let's see.
Well, that's a shame. I would like to have gone to a party, but no one invited me.
Well, I know. Same here. Nobody invited me either. If I had invited you to a Super Bowl party, would you have flown over here, Nick, to
of course
attend?
Absolutely.
Oh, darn it. Well, I'll know better next time then. So, Nick, since you're talking at this point, what have you been up to since the last episode?
Well, there's only been one aviation-related event, really, and that was the lovely visit by Dave Gooch. Now, there's a bit of audio, so why don't we play that, and that will probably answer everyone's questions about who Dave Gooch is and what he was doing over here.
All right, let's do that.
Hi there, Jeff. It's Nick here, sitting in the conservatory studio. We get lots of visitors. We don't get that many from the United States, but today I've got a new visitor, Dave Gooch, who's come all the way over from the States to come and visit family. An interesting story. Dave, first of all, thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you for having me, Nick. It's a beautiful home.
You're very kind. Absolute pleasure. How did you get into aviation? What's your job now? What's going on?
Well, I got into aviation. I was in college, and I grew up in the Air Force. My dad was a boom operator on KC-135s, and I was going to be a physical therapist, and realized after my first year of college I didn't want to do that. And they had an ROTC poster, so I went and looked at the ROTC program, and there's fortunately a shortage of pilots, and they let me fly.
Oh, sounds very generous.
It was very generous of them.
What did you end up flying?
Well, not everybody can fly this plane. They only handpick some of the best and the brightest. The C-141 is what I started off with.
That's a real old airplane, isn't it?
It's very old. Yes.
Yeah. So only the oldest.
The oldest and
greyest,
yeah. Well, if I had hair, it would be great.
Excellent. The 141, I know it's a much loved airplane. What was it like to fly?
Oh, it was amazing. We got to go all over the world, and I don't know if Captain Jeff did it, but I did the airdrop stuff in it. So dropped paratroopers and heavy equipment, and actually dropped some of your British SAS in Berlin, and with some German SAS. And that not to get long-winded, but I walked by the scheduling desk, and they're like, "Hey, we need you to do something. Airdrop in Berlin." But here's the caveat: you have to go to, I believe it was the Royal Air Tattoo in 2000. Is that Upper Hayford? Is that ring a bell?
It might have been then. Nowadays, it's at Fairford, I think.
Fairford. There you go. That's exactly where it was.
Oh, that's brilliant. That must have been exciting. You then went on to Special Forces work on the 130.
Right? The C-130s. Yep, in the Pennsylvania Guard.
And that was, I'm sure, brilliant.
No, it was very exciting, and probably a little bit more excitement that I had wanted out of a guard job. I was looking for the air shows and the Weekend Warrior stuff, but it was very rewarding to do that.
That's absolutely brilliant. A fantastic career. How many years?
I did 10 and a half on active duty and 11 on with the Guard, so a total of 21 and a half.
Well, that's brilliant. Well done. And thank you very much indeed for your service.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your service.
Well, we're great here. Let's slap each other on the back. That's super. And then off to the boring world of civil flying.
Yeah, I started. I ended up getting my CFI because nobody was hiring, and then I got on with that company in New York that sounds like Jet Who. I was actually number 98 on their seniority list, and
wow!
And
nearly the chief pilot.
Nearly the chief pilot. And then I believe you guys call it Ajax. They called. So I worked for Ajax for 3 years, and now I'm a 737 captain for a large 737 carrier that's based in the southwestern part of the United States.
Okay, I think we'll guess at that. But in the meantime, you've actually had a foot in both camps. You've flown Airbus as well.
Yeah, with JetBlue, I got my type rating on the 320, and then after getting furloughed at American, I went to USA 3000 and flew the A320, 321s there for a little while. I'm doing some Caribbean stuff and Florida charters and stuff, Apple vacations.
Which gives you a great perspective on both manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
But like I like to say, we're all professional pilots, and we fly what machinery is put in front of us most of the time.
You know, when I tell people that all the time, I had a friend that went to Spirit Airlines because he didn't want to fly 737s. And I'm like, you pay me enough money, I'll fly a Metroliner. Well, pretty much everything, but maybe not the Mad Dog. But
that's not funny.
Yeah, that coal dust gets everywhere.
It does,
doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Now you're over in the UK visiting family, but it's not just like the usual story of visiting family. Could you tell us a little more?
So again, not to get too long-winded, but I'm adopted. I always knew I was adopted. Grew up that way. My parents were stationed at Mildenhall in the United States Air Force and adopted me when I was an infant and brought me back to the States. And I actually went to work probably about 5 years ago, and I got a letter from the Royal Mail, and turns out I had a half sister that was trying to find me. So the secret kind of got out and on her mother's side of the family, and so I made contact with her, and we've been in touch for the last few years. She's come to the United States, and I visited them in Newcastle, and now I'm actually coming over here to renew my British passport. So I flew into London last night, and spending the night in London. Then we're going to go up to Newcastle, and then my wife's joining me. She's flying in tonight. Then we're going to go to Scotland and visit up there because I haven't really spent any time in Scotland.
Well, the weather up there is usually a bit colder, so I hope you brought a thick coat.
Yeah, we brought the heavy. So it's balmy down here in the south.
It is, and we are all balmy as well. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure. I don't want to make this too long, but it's so kind of you to drop in and see me.
It's kind of you to pick me up at the train station and take me. We had a beautiful Sunday roast and sticky toffee pudding. It was very delicious.
Yeah, and now we're going to watch some traditional English
watch some rugby and
15 blokes banging heads together.
There you go.
And let's hope England win.
Go England.
Go England. So have a wonderful visit while you're here. Delightful to see you. And thank you very much indeed for being such a faithful follower of the show.
Oh, thank you, Nick.
My pleasure. And back to you in the studio, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Nick. And that was really a lot of funny stuff in there.
He's quite a joker, isn't he? No,
Yeah.
we got on very well. I was so chuffed that he took the time to. He'd only just landed that morning at like 6 o'clock or something in the morning, and then he found his way to Waterloo, jumped on a train down to my little village, and we went out for lunch, had a few beers, watched the rugby, and then packed him back on the train so he could head off, go find his Airbnb, and then pick up his lovely wife, Anne-Marie, the next day. And you saw some pictures of them both in London after our visit, enjoying the delights of the expensive London pubs, which are all very old-fashioned, and they charge a bomb.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, you probably shouldn't use that word though in the pubs.
Possibly not. No. But there you go. And I believe he's already on his way up to Newcastle to visit his family that he didn't really know existed until relatively recently. So I think it was a great story and a lovely bloke. And a great pleasure to meet you, Dave. And wish you well in the future.
And Dave, he's just a quick mention. We talked about it in the last episode. He is part of the Coffee Fund cadre, and we do appreciate that. And I was kind of expecting when he said he was had British citizenship, I expected him to have a British accent, and I was kind of surprised when I heard this audio recording. I went, "Oh, wait a minute! It sounds like an American."
American, yeah. He left the UK when he was adopted when he was about one and a half.
So he
quite
never
young.
picked it up.
Not quite young enough to
Yeah.
pick up a true accent, yes. But
Right.
he seems to understand the British ways fairly well, so that was good.
At least somebody does.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And I was hoping to impress him with the prowess of the England rugby team, but
Yeah.
sadly, the
No.
nasty Frenchman over the channel there did for us, and we lost. Boo.
Ah, boo.
Exactly. What can
Um,
I say?
well, very good. It was nice that you had a chance to meet Dave, and as we always say on the show here, that that's really one of the best things about this whole thing is our community, and we're
Absolutely.
so glad he's part of it now.
Very much so. Very much so.
All right. Anything else?
Nope, that's been it for me.
Okay. Just quickly, we received some email from Jeff DeStasio, and he was at the Atlanta airport last week, and he said, "Just curious, did I see Captain Jeff walking through Terminal B in Atlanta just now, around 2200 on the 30th?" And let's see, I literally just found the podcast and was listening and checking out the website, and then looked up and either saw Captain Jeff or his doppelganger. Haha. Anyway, hope everything is well. Off to GSO tonight to finish my commercial multi-engine rating this weekend. Keep the great
Good luck
podcasts
with
coming. Thank
that.
you. Well, he goes on.
Ah,
So both Liz and I responded and said, I basically said it must have been my doppelganger. And I said I'd get half of his paycheck. That's our agreement.
that's the fee.
And so anyway, we both said, welcome to the community. Give us an update on your progress, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so he was waiting for the weather to clear up so he could do his check ride. And then we just received this, I'm not sure when, maybe just yesterday. Check ride passed 33 years ago. A Delta 727 pilot gave me some plastic wings. Today, I'm on a Delta flight home with the real deal. Don't forget
Oh,
to hand out those wings, he says.
how cool is that?
Yeah. So isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So Dana and I know that we probably both at every opportunity hand out our little plastic wings to the young passengers.
Even
and
I've got a pair.
yeah, nice
I
pair
don't
you
know who
have there.
gave them to me, but somebody gave them to me.
Yeah, I don't think I would have given you any of mine, so must have been somebody else.
Yeah, it wasn't me for sure.
Rotten lot.
Yeah. Anyway, so thanks, Jeff. Congrats on the commercial check ride passage, and keep us informed of your future progress. And last but not least, until Steph gets here anyway, Dana, you weren't here with us last week, and why is that?
Well, I've had quite a busy week well, actually, last 2 weeks actually. Started off with the Atlanta Aviation Social, which I was able to. I don't know if you can see that on the
Here, let me click on
video
your.
because of the glare. Let's
Uh-huh.
see.
I
Do that.
see
the glare is
sort
still there.
of. Yeah,
How much
the
I can
glare
do.
is there.
Let's see.
There you go. Atlanta's Aviation Social.
with the skyline, and then down here is my name, Dana APG, and I went representing our podcast as a supporter of the podcast that oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. Don't get old. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? All of a sudden, Derek Fento.
Oh, you're looking. I wasn't sure whose name you were looking for there.
Yeah, no, Derek's podcast. It's just
okay.
the traffic pattern. I just getting old. I was looking at the Aviation Social and completely had a brain fart.
Okay, so like take two, and then I'll make sure that the audio.
Yeah, let's do that again.
Completely.
All right.
seamless.
So, anyways, the Atlanta Aviation Social is where I started off before I went on my vacation, and there's the placard, the name tag that he had made up. It was wonderful. Has a picture of the Atlanta skyline, the date, and where it was held, and at the bottom it says your name, and I put Dana at the APG, and went to the Traffic Pattern Podcast meetup. That's what this is all about. And the host was Derek Vento. And he was, let me tell you what, he had this thing put together. It was very nicely done. A complete layout of food, beverages, including some alcoholic beverages, and the amount of people that showed up from all over the place. I was actually waiting for Fred, our friend Fred from San Francisco, to walk through the door at any time, but he didn't. I was a little disappointed. But seriously, we had people all the way from California. Spoke to St. Louis. Spoke to a bush pilot that lives in Salt Lake City. I'm not going to list off the names, so I'm not going to spend all that much time on that. But met an incredible amount of people in the aviation community. Again, going there in support of Derek and his fantastic podcast, and just want to represent our podcast. And of course, I handed out a lot of cards. Did see a couple of people that are listeners to our podcast as well, so I got to talk to them. So that was the night before I left on the cruise. Now, the only aviation activity I've had are two things: plane spotting and riding as a passenger. So fortunately, my Achilles has healed up well enough that during the cruise I was able to go do some scuba diving. But prior to that point, got on a 757. Haven't been on one of those in a very long time. Had purchased tickets and was very comfortable, actually. I was for the very short flight down to Fort Lauderdale and got on the cruise ship. Got settled in. We had a very nice room. There was 20, I think it was 26, 25 or 26 of us on the ship. We all went for the celebration. Well, my wife and I, Julie and I, took our her parents, my in-laws, for their 50th wedding anniversary on this cruise. So the group that we went with, all group that they know from past parties around the neighborhood, and had a fantastic time on the cruise ship. We left the first day was at sea. Second day, went to their private island in Labadee, which was a very pleasant experience, very pleasant day. Then back on the ship for another day, and we ended up down in Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, known as the ABC Islands. And when I was when we pulled into Aruba, I didn't have my phone with me, because I had turned it off and left it in the safe. I wish I had, because the airport for downtown for Aruba Island, I forget the actual head the capital city in Aruba, but anyways, the airport was just to the south of us, of the pier, and I watched in 727, something I haven't seen forever, come down on final approach over the top of the water, and obviously landed safely at the airport. So that was a beautiful sight to see, something I had not seen. When I say aircraft spotting, that was an amazing thing. We went diving in all 3 locations, and again, my hats off to Eric Ryback, with his cards that he had sent to me, Franco maps. In all 3 locations, they were at all 3 dive shops. So I was very happy to see that his distribution has them sent out all over the place. So they were very helpful. And my father-in-law, who I was very concerned about, and him doing a great job of in the water, he had some buoyancy issues. He did a fantastic job with his buoyancy, and all 5 dives that we did were amazing. I've got lots of photographs that I took. That's one of my. It's funny. All my surface photographs. Yeah, I took like 3, and I took 271 under the water. So that shows you where my passion is. And I whittled that down to 98. I think I have it down to now, because you take like 40 pictures of one thing, so you can get the right picture. So other than that, got back on the ship in Curacao after our final dive, and came back home on Sunday, just in time to have to choose between 4 different invites on Super Bowl party. Sorry, Jeff. To watch the fantastic game. However, about halftime, we were done. I mean, we were just so exhausted. We drove home, and I didn't even finish watching the rest of the Super Bowl, and went to sleep. That's about it. I am really looking forward to going back this week, because my Achilles tendon has finally healed well enough for me to go back to work. So I will be hopefully this week posting my schedule for the upcoming month, but I have back-to-back Milwaukee overnights coming up on Sunday and Monday, and looking forward to getting into the saddle again. I really miss it. So that's all that's been going on with me.
Great. So if we have any listeners in the Milwaukee area, make sure you contact Dana. And
we have one way up there, and you know who he is. Helped us out with the
oh yeah, Madison.
Yep.
That's right. That's not far from Milwaukee, is it?
No, it's only about an hour. I'll probably reach out to him and see what he's
Uber
up to.
Frank. Yeah, man.
Uber
he's our
Frank.
man. Yeah.
So I forgot to mention one thing. I got the right size from George and Ollie. I move my microphone away, you can see they're ready for takeoff t-shirt I am sporting. It fits me quite nicely, George. Thank you very much for getting the right one. And when I see Dr. Steph, I'll make sure she gets the size that will fit her. What else? There was one other thing I was going to mention. I can't remember. But anyways, that's about it. Great. I was going to say that it was that Derek did such a great job that there's only one other aviation event that I can ever remember going to that was better than that, and that's when we were in Oshkosh, and we had that whole entire week of being in the camper with all of our, all the people that love aviation coming to spend time with us, and that really was a lot of fun as well. But he did such a great job with that. It was truly an amazing event. I just have to say that.
All right. Very good. Looks like Dr. Steph is just about ready. We just received information that she is at home, and she just needs a few minutes to get everything set up. And I'm sure that as soon as she turns that computer on, everything is going to be set up perfectly, and there will be no technical issues whatsoever.
I'm actually going to use those few moments to ease springs, if I may.
Yes, I am just about to pee in my pants right now. So,
okay.
I think this would be a nice little intermission until Steph is ready to go. What do you think? I'm trying to spend Let me see if I can find the banner that says intermission. Here we go. Oh, I thought it was a ticker. Guess not. Here we go. This is more appropriate.
Nice one.
We'll be right back. I guess we all left. Sorry. If you're watching the video. Right. Let me go back to this and play some. Oh, I should have stopped the timer, but I know that Liz is on top of all that. Play some nice music in the background. So is Hannah all taken care of, Liz? All right. Oranjestad. Oranjestad. Capital of Aruba. Huh, I don't think I've ever heard that. Let me see. I should probably look at the comments in the chat room and engage with our audience. Just got to my hotel in Niagara Falls, USA side. Glad I can make the rest of the show. Yeah, glad you can too, Ken. I think I noticed somebody new that I haven't seen before in the chat room. Marianne McNally, welcome. She's on the Facebook Live stream. Talking about sticky taffy pudding. Oh, I had a wonderful sticky toffee pudding at the hotel where the PTUK had their 300th episode thing. Uh-oh. Steph says that she's having trouble with her computer. She thinks her computer hates her. That can't be right. Nobody hates Dr. Steph, except for the people that are getting stabbed in the back by her. Let's see. Thank you, Daniel. Nice choice of tunes there. He said, oh, I should be doing this. There we go. Now everybody can see the comments. Yeah, I love jazz too. This actually, when the guy recorded it, I think this kid is 10 years old playing this. Believe it or not. Oh, Louisville can. Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember that. You were on one of my flights. Yeah, I enjoyed that. We went to the, this is Ken Sellers talking about our meetup in Louisville, our private meetup in Louisville. We went across the street from the hotel, the Embassy Suites at that time. We're at a different hotel now, a couple blocks south of where we were before. But we went to the little Mexican cantina across the street. Had a nice meal.
How'd you know it was a little Mexican?
Well, because I saw him.
Isn't it a bit rude pointing that out?
Sorry. You're right. A very normal-sized Mexican cantina. Yeah, I should fly for jazz. So I was in Louisville last week, I believe, and we're staying at the, what do we call it? The Hyatt? No, Hilton Garden Inn now. And I was thinking about you guys. Should have tried to get in touch with you so you could come meet me for a bite to eat. It's very cold, though. Let's see. What else have I missed? I miss a lot in my advanced age. Putting the P in APG. Thank you, Mike Kuipers. By the way, did you notice we used your suggestion for the episode title on the last episode? Tasers beat lasers. Thank you for the inspiration.
Yeah, it was real hard one to get a picture for.
Yeah.
Can we have something slightly simpler next time, please?
It would have been great to have somebody writhing on the ground being tased.
Yeah, I looked for pictures of writhing people.
Yeah.
Didn't get many results, I'm afraid.
Oh, well.
And there was nothing much in my diary, no, my photo collection, I should say.
You don't have a lot of folks in writhing in pain on the ground?
No.
In your,
particularly not in pilot's uniforms.
Well, next time I see that, I'll make sure that I snap a photo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Boy.
Well, how's the doctor doing?
Well, she said that she thinks her computer hates her.
No.
So just to give you an idea. Oh, look at that. Looks like my image behind me timed out. So let me fix that. I can do something different, I guess. Let's see how this looks. Not very good.
Oh, he's playing havocs with your auto exposure on your camera.
Sorry for the exposure, folks.
That's what she said. I can't see my mouse on the computer. Well, the mouse isn't on the computer. The mouse is on your mouse pad.
Look on the
look on your desk. Just to the right of the computer, usually.
We're so funny.
We are.
We crack ourselves up.
Such useful advice.
Yes. That's why we're here, for useful advice. Have you tried to restart the computer, I wonder?
That's probably why it hates her.
Yeah.
Well, we could always do plain tales while we're waiting.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. Good idea.
Or
mix it up a little bit more.
Or do we do coffee bar?
I haven't done that yet. Let's do that. Hang on. Let me see if I can readjust this exposure here, which is just awful looking. See if that's any better. That better? Oh, I should probably go back with the other one. See that reflection of the LED panel? Hello? Oh, why can't I hear you?
Sorry, because I was muted. Yes, I can, and it's shining right in the screen.
Yeah,
sadly.
so the other photo that I had was perfect for that because it looks like that's where the sun is coming from. Let me move it up a little bit. There we go. See, it hid that perfectly.
Steph just said, yes, just as I shut the computer down, the pointer popped back up on the screen. So actually, it was probably some program that shut itself down as you were rebooting that was inhibiting it. So it'll probably be fine next time.
Yes, that is from Captain Nick, computer expert.
Yes, thank you very
but
much.
I think you're right, actually. That's exactly what it is, I'm sure. Okay. Okay, let me go over here, put this back down, and why don't we, while we're waiting for Steph, knock out one more thing, which is, of course, acknowledging our wonderful people who are part of our Coffee Fun Cadre, Coffee Bar Fun Club, and all that jazz. So let me see here. Let me make sure that I'm ready to talk about that. Why is my scrolling not working anymore on my iPad? That's interesting. Okay. And let me go over here and hit this button here. Not loud enough.
Johnny, how much more coffee? No thanks.
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG community. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
All right. The Coffee Fund. We play that when we talk about our wonderful Coffee Bar Club, Coffee Fund Cadre members, because they contribute to the show via the Coffee Fund. And a couple different ways to do that. The first is the the Coffee Fund Classic Method. And since the last show, we have Anthony Chiarvella, Randolph Ackerman, Mazus Karim, and Alan Loveday. Those were all via the Coffee Fund Classic Method. And the other way to contribute to the Coffee Fund is to become a patron of the show via patreon.com. And since the last episode, we don't have any new patrons. Never mind. It was only a few days ago when we had our last, and we had several, like 6 new patrons. So anyway, check it out. If you're interested in contributing to the show, you can do it Coffee Fund Classic Method or via Patreon. Information about all that on our website, airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. All right.
Nothing's happened. Don't worry.
She's still struggling with her computer issues.
Well, the loading bar seems to have stuck.
Oh no.
She's probably having similar problems like I'm having.
Well, everybody's having problems.
I'm not.
Oh, except Nick, and I'm not having any yet today.
You're about to.
Should we all switch to Windows? That's a good one. Sorry, those of you out there who like Windows.
You're mean.
Well, Paul, so nice to have you watching us live, but get to work, okay? Get out there and make some money. Glad you were able to see a little bit of us live. Have you guys been down under in the land of Oz yet? Yeah, I was many, many years ago when I was flying that ancient airplane in the U.S. Air Force, the C-141B. Of which Dave Gooch was talking about with Nick earlier, and made it into Richmond, Royal Australian Air Force Base a couple of times.
Yeah, and I spent 3 years at Willie. So,
yeah, you were there for a long time.
Yeah.
He's the expert.
And since the old man lives in Perth.
And you're half Australian.
I do, yes. Oh, hello, my bloody picture's frozen.
I know, it's like are you a ventriloquist? Oh, now you're having your issues. It's just a matter of time before I have some issues with everything. Ah, boy. Isn't technology wonderful?
Yeah, it's marvelous.
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 C-177, nice ride. Who's talking about the Cessna 177? Must be somebody.
How's that?
Further up
That's
here.
Better.
Yeah, I can see you're moving.
I think it is the right camera. Good.
A little bit of a
the exposure's gone to. Yeah, what's that about?
I don't know. Liz is not having any issues. That's good. Well, then maybe you should come on the video then, Liz. She's shaking her head. No.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay, Paul. Yeah. Catch us on the audio version of the show, which hopefully, let's see, today's Tuesday, should have it out by, I'm hoping Thursday or Friday, probably more likely Friday. Let's see. Harry Mike from, or hi from Mike in Gulfport, Mississippi. Ooh, I'm seeing some progress here. I see Dr. Steph's. Oh, look at that! Yay!
Hey!
Now, is
everything working? I have
I
no
think
idea.
so.
You beat it into submission. Well done.
Yeah, I was about to actually beat it, so like with a hammer.
Knock it off
Fortunately,
the
it did
desk.
not come to that.
That thing has been doing pretty well for as old as it is. How old is
Yeah,
it
I mean
then?
gosh, I'm trying to think. Probably
At least
I have to
5
think
years,
how old
right?
it is now. Oh no, it's older than that.
Yeah.
I forget exactly, but yeah.
Ken
Welcome,
Sellers.
anyway.
Yeah, welcome, Steph.
Thank you.
So
Glad to see you guys.
the magic of podcasting, we're going to pretend like you just popped in. So let me get your sound effect ready. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, you hear that music? You know what that means? That means Dr. Steph is in the video, and I'm trying to get all that fancy stuff that I say, but I don't need to because everybody knows who she is and what she does.
It's all right. I'm just hoping that my video is actually still working because now my screen has frozen again.
Oh, it is. You're
Okay.
moving. Your mouth moving. We can hear you.
Good.
Good thing. Okay.
Yeah. So glad I could finally join you all, and I'm glad that my computer has finally decided to also allow me to do that. So
yeah,
good to be here. Got to listen to a little bit of the show, end of the news, I think, on the way down here. So
okay.
it was good.
Yeah, hopefully you weren't listening to it while you were stabbing people in the back.
No, I was not. That doesn't
probably not a good idea.
So well.
All right. Well, so Steph, so far we've covered all the news, and we've kind of done our part for the Getting to Know Us segment. And we were mentioning that it's only been a few days since we recorded last, so probably not a heck of a lot going on. Well, wait a minute. Somebody like you, probably a lot has happened.
I can squeeze a lot into a few days here.
Yeah.
None of it for me as well. Doesn't sound like anyone did any real flying or anything. Some aviation related stuff. No personal flying, but back on an airplane again. Lots of travel recently. This time down to the Tampa area of Florida, which is where my grandfather lives. And he is, hello. Sorry.
That's all right. Somebody's at your door, I think.
Yeah, no. My computer is like loading all kinds of stuff now, and I have no idea why I decided to turn all the sound back on. So that's good. So went down to the Tampa area which is where my grandfather lives, and he's getting a little up there in years. I was off on the year I thought he was born, so I think he's actually 93 and a half. I was saying 95. I was just rounding up. Either way, doing well.
Mid-90s.
Yeah, mid-90s. Has had some health issues, challenges recently, so he's doing some rehab right now. So had a chance to go down and spend some time with him and also help just take care of a few things. The biggest thing ended up being that he actually needed a new phone. So it took the better part of the 2 days I was down there to try and get that set up and then, teach him how to use it, even though it was essentially the same phone.
He didn't pick it up like right off the bat.
He does very well with it. I'm not trying to say anything, but it just takes a little bit of time and just little, you have to slow things down a little bit, which is difficult for me to do, even just speaking. So, but yeah, it was good. It was good to see him. My dad was down there as well. We watched the Super Bowl down there. I heard you guys talking about that a little bit. So our party was in rehab room number, whatever it was. We had a nice
like a 90-inch screen or something, right?
Probably, what would you say that was, like 20-inch maybe?
Oh.
Yeah.
I might just point out a little bit of confusion there in England. Rehab is somewhere you go if you've got a drug addiction.
Well, this
we
is
call it convalescence.
Okay, we call it. Well, this is a skilled nursing facility which has physical therapy, occupational therapy, that type of thing, where you go when you need
good.
that type of help. Yes.
But we also call that.
We also
for,
call
like,
drug and alcohol
addiction.
rehab. You just have to know for context.
Yeah. Come on.
Fair enough.
Try to keep up with us.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
So, but fortunately, the Publix and the Pizza Hut were right in the room, and that was a lot of fun. And then, because I didn't want to, this was me, I didn't want to fly home in the middle of the Super Bowl because that just, who does that? I decided to fly home the following morning and go straight to work. So I had a 5 a.m. flight. And then I worked all day yesterday, and I came home and went almost immediately to bed. Got about 9.5 hours of sleep last night, and I feel great now.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
You'd have got any seat you wanted if you'd flown on during Super Bowl, wouldn't you?
Probably. But I don't remember much of that 5 a.m. flight because I think I fell asleep before we even pushed back from the gate.
Only
and then
you
I was
can do that.
disappointed that we were actually early because I was planning on sleeping for a few more minutes.
Wanted
there.
some more sleep.
I wanted some more sleep. And then I went straight to my office and I went in to get Start Friday because it's a Monday and Monday's usually busy, only to find out my first 2 patients of the morning had canceled. I'm like, I could have taken a nap somewhere else.
Wow.
Yep.
But it gave me plenty of time to kind of, I wasn't sleepy or tired at that point. But by the time I got home, I was ready to recover.
Aren't there plenty of treatment beds you could grab 40 winks on?
Yeah, kind of. But no.
Not very professional. Huh?
Not really.
Someone walks in to find the doctor fast asleep.
Yeah. And truly, I was fine. It was just by the time I got home, I knew I needed to recover. That's all. So
Cool. Well, I'm glad it all worked out so well.
I'm glad you're caught up, I think.
And I was very pleased to find that because nothing was open in the Tampa airport at 5 o'clock in the morning. There was a coffee place open, but they didn't have my beverage of choice, which would just be a chai tea latte. But the American Airlines lounge was conveniently located adjacent to my gate. So I just wandered in there and got some breakfast and wandered right back out. Got on my flight. That was nice.
You're one of those fancy pants multi-zillion milers, right?
Well, apparently there's people out there with more miles than I have still.
Oh, really?
Not many.
Yeah, not many.
Quite a few. Based on the upgrade lists I see sometimes. I went, really? Okay.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, we're glad that you were able to join us. I hope that you have a beer opened up and.
I pulled it out of the fridge, but I didn't even get a chance to open it yet because I was messing around with the computer. So let's.
Love that sound.
That's pretty good.
All right.
Cheers.
So cheers to you, and
Yes.
Here, my sparkling water.
I did grab some pretzels here too. You can probably see in the corner of the picture.
Cheers. I'm going to drink my lemon water.
My gin and tonic.
Okay, I'm
Ooh,
glad
nice.
someone else is also having alcohol. Thanks.
So, Nick, do you recognize this thing?
Yeah, that looks like one of those really natty Yeti. I'd call it a stubby holder. What do you call it?
Well, yeah, no, don't call it that. I call it. It's like a koozie or something, like a stainless
That looks
koozie,
good.
a Yeti. I saw them. Nick and Jilly were using them at their wonderful home, and I thought, I think that I should get a couple. I gave one to Chris.
I think I have some of those too.
Yeah.
You don't need to put a pad in the bottom of yours though, because your cans fit.
Yes, my can fits just nicely.
Good. Just a warning to anyone British who gets one of those. Our cans are a little small, so you need
a little stubbier
in the bottom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, you can't see it, but just to the left of this big screen TV right behind me is a wonderful coffee making device that I was exposed to at Nick's house as well, and I found a really good deal on it.
What else were you exposed to?
Yeah,
well, I was exposed to a lot.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you came back in one piece.
I have a full-size cardboard cutout of Nick. Never mind. I'm just saying, thinking of things that I was exposed to, but it's a
Poor
family
you.
show.
Poor you.
Yes.
So, how are your Nespressos?
Oh, they're wonderful. I'm having just the best time trying to figure out which ones are my favorite. And
Good luck with that.
yeah,
Take notes.
it's very nice. Very nice. All right. I think now it might be a good time for us to continue with the show. What do y'all think?
Yeah, you bet.
Sure.
All right. Let's start off with, well, you know what, Nick, do you want us to, because I don't know how you're feeling right now. I know it's getting kind of
I'm
late.
feeling
for you.
good. Let's carry on. It's
Keep
only,
going?
It's only just gone 9 here, so
Okay.
I'm good for a little while.
All right. Very good. Then we'll wait a little bit longer before we do the plain tale. So let's just dive right into our feedback. Wow, that's loud. To me, anyway. Try that again.
Captain, incoming message.
All right, let's start with item number 1 from Captain Steve. Yay. He sent us a link to a YouTube video of an American Airlines 767 flight, no, 777 flight coming into John F. Kennedy International. And let's take a listen. I've edited this, by the way, from the video. So let's take a listen.
Hey, Tower, American 45 Heavy.
American 45 Heavy, Kennedy Tower, runway 4 right, little land, wind 3307.
New land, 4 right, American 45 Heavy. American 45 is on the go.
American 45 Heavy, roger. Fly runway heading, maintain 2000. I'll have a right turn shortly.
And there's a flock of birds right up the departure end of 4. I mean, the approach end. A lot of them, geese.
4.
Okay, roger. Is that the reason for the go?
Affirmative. Is it the left side or right?
Right side.
Okay, very good. 645 Foxtrot Delta on the LS for it. We may have an engine problem. We requested a right turn, American, back to downwind, American 45 Heavy.
45 Heavy, turn right heading 100 and approved as requested.
00, American 45 Heavy.
Yeah, geese are now off the approach end of 4 left.
American 45 Heavy, clean level of 3000.
American 45 Heavy, approved as requested, maintain 3000. And American 45 Heavy, are you able to switch frequencies or you prefer to stay here?
You know what? We're going to stay with you.
Stay right back in on the downwind.
Affirmative, American 45 Heavy. Tower 5 Fox Delta, did you get our check-in?
Turn right to a heading of 180.
Right, 180, American 45 Heavy.
And this is W237. 5 Fox Delta, 4 right, little land with 3306.
Put in 485 Fox Delta. American 45 Heavy, we're at emergency right now. Request ARP after a landing.
American 45 Heavy, roger, understand that. Enter right downwind for runway 4 right.
And we're going to head 220.
American 45 Heavy, roger.
Tower Tower 4859, Southwest 4 right.
4859, cancel approach. Maintain 2000, I'll return.
Maintain 2000, approach canceled, 4859.
River, Japan Air 3 Heavy, runway 4 left, clear for takeoff.
Japan Air 3 Heavy, runway 4 left, clear for takeoff.
4859, you have the field in sight?
We do, 4859.
4859, that's cleared visual approach, runway 4 left, clear to land.
Cleared visual to 4 left, clear to land 4 left, 4859.
And correction, 4859, additionally, traffic 1 o'clock, 4 miles, 3000, heavy 777, that's an emergency aircraft, going to be inbound to the right side.
Insight, 4859.
American 45 heavy, traffic 1 o'clock, 4 miles, 2000, a regional jet, that traffic's inbound to the left side. And American 45 heavy, at your discretion, let me know when you want to start the downwind turn, you have the field in sight?
Field in sight.
Alright, American 45 heavy, roger, let me know when you want to make the downwind turn, and you can have the left or right side, at your discretion. Sorry, the base turn.
Potential emergency equipment alert 2, runway 4 right. Potential emergency equipment alert 2, runway 4 right.
And Ground 99 copies the alert. Should I go over to 123.9? I'm at the approach at 4 right.
Car 99, yes. Hold short of 4 right, and you can switch the tower on 119.1 now.
119.1, 99.
Take the left side, American 45 Heavy.
American 45 Heavy, roger. You can enter right base to runway 4 left. Japan 3 Heavy, turn right heading 100, call departure.
Heading 100, departure Japan Air 3 Heavy.
5 Foxtrot Delta, turn left on Foxtrot, hold short runway 4 left.
American 45 Heavy, we're making a right turn now for the base to 4 left.
American 45 Heavy, roger, approved as requested. Car 99, Kennedy.
Tower 99.
Subject aircraft now inbound to runway 4 left.
Holding to the 4 left, upon landing, I'd like to enter behind him.
Car 99, roger, I understand you're at Juliet, hold short runway 4 left.
99, hold to the 4 left.
American 45 Heavy, field 1 o'clock, 7 miles, and you have field in sight?
sight. We're clear to land, American 45 Heavy.
45 Heavy, yes, descent, your discretion, clear visual approach, runway 4 left, wind 3306, runway 4 left, clear to land.
Clear visual, it's clear to land 4 left, American 45 Heavy. And it looks like they took one of those birds on that. It must have been at least 50 geese on the approach end of 4 right.
I understand that, thank you, sir. Emergency equipment is standing by.
Emergency truck 1, subject aircraft now number 1 on a 6-mile final for runway 4 left.
Truck 1, copy.
And now, Steve's favorite part of this.
4859, you have the left here?
Yeah.
Okay, turn left here, left on Bravo, just get out of the way. Left Bravo, get ground call 121.9, good day.
Left Bravo, we'll call that 46.
Get out of the way.
Kennedy Ground, Rescue 1.
Rescue 1, Kennedy Ground.
Do we know which engine he's having a problem with?
Stand by.
One of the
Truck
two.
1, we are unsure which engine it is. We believe it was a geese. He ingested a goose in one of the engines.
You were unreadable as the last.
It was a flock of geese that he flew through on the approach, and we believe he ingested into one of the engines, but we're not sure which engine it was.
Okay, right, thank you.
Hey, guess what? They landed safely.
Hooray!
Made it back, everybody alive, all that kind of stuff. I think they did a pretty good job of handling the situation. Although I did note that the guy that was speaking on the radio for American 45 Heavy, his voice changed a little bit once he realized that they were having problems with the engine.
Just a little, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. And then he kind of calmed back down again after that, after the first couple of I guess, that realization, oh crap, there's something wrong with our engine.
This could be bad. Like, we'll make sure we get back. Just gonna convey that in my.
Now, I was thinking to myself, geese, New York, January 2009, Miracle on the Hudson, and this was just 11 years later. 11 years and 6 days. So
you're saying that there are geese in New York in the vicinity of airport,
it's a
in the vicinity of the airport in January.
Yes.
I'd like to point out the Canadian as well.
Yes, well, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
You have to watch out for those Canadians.
Damn right.
Liz is giving us a thumbs up. All right. Job well done. They handled the, they were doing the right thing by going around to try to avoid flying into the geese, but unfortunately they didn't quite escape it and had some compressor stalling / issues with the engine, but they did a very nice job.
Yep. Good coordination, I thought there. Everything sounded good.
Yeah, actually, I was very impressed. They know what they're doing there at John F. Kennedy, even though sometimes we can't understand what they're saying. But the emergency response was spot on. I mean, everybody was professional. Everybody seemed to be right, on the same page. We're ready for the emergency aircraft to come in, and I was very impressed with the performance of not only the air crew, but also the ARFF folks and the tower people. Everything did a great job in my even the guy that was told to get off the run, get out of here, get off the runway.
Just get out of the way.
Just get out of the way.
I don't care where you go. Just get out of the way. That was the best. Right. I agree with Steve there.
Yeah, me too.
So I have a funny just radio story about this as overheard by actually, I was doing traffic work in the pattern. I had to think of where the event actually happened up at Concord Regional Airport. This was a while back, but there was a aircraft landing ahead of us, some sort of business jet, I don't remember. And they said, "Tower, be advised, there is a huge flock of birds on final." And they said it kind of like that. So our turn, we're coming around base to final, and air traffic controller gets on and goes, "Cessna, whatever. Be advised, there is a huge flock of birds on final." Kind of used the same emphasis in his voice, which was very funny. And they were still there. They were just off to the side. We could see them. But
was it a huge flock?
It was a huge flock of birds. It was a lot of birds. So
awesome.
It was just funny the way it was all the information was conveyed.
Yeah.
Well, those Canadian geese are pretty damn big, and you don't need more than one really to really upset your day. And if there was a big flock of them, did he say 50 or 50?
Yeah, he estimated
50, I think.
50,
yeah, that could really spoil your day.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Thanks, Steve, for sending that in. We've been talking about lithium batteries on and off in the last few episodes, and Greg from Down Under, I believe, sent us an audio recording. So let's take a listen.
Hi, Jeff, Steph, Dana, and Nick. This is Greg from Sydney. Just got a couple of comments or a bit of feedback on episodes 406 and 408 with a mention of electric planes and lithium batteries and burnt eggs, etc., etc. I remember hearing Elon Musk once say, it was only 18 months ago or something like that, when asked about electric aircraft, he mentioned that currently the power density of batteries didn't exist to make it commercially viable for a long-haul aircraft. His indications were that the battery density needed to be 400 watts per kilogram for the batteries to make it worthwhile, and that currently the best batteries around were only at 250. So there needed to be basically a quantum leap to get up to the 400, and once that was done, then it'd be fine. So that electric Beaver, obviously only doing short haul flights is probably not. They're not too worried about the fact that the battery, is not going to be fully charged for that long. So there's that was the comments I wanted to make. One other thing that I did recently read in a newspaper in Sydney was that Monash University in Melbourne, plus I think it was a German university, have applied for a patent on lithium sulfur batteries. And these have a much, much higher density, power density than lithium ion. They are cheaper to produce and use water-based products, and they more than likely won't suffer from the same thermal runaway that the lithium ion does when it has an internal failure. And this internal failure is a crack, apparently, in the cathodes, which then obviously overheats and causes it to fail. The sulfur cathodes don't suffer from that, so the battery density, they can get the battery density right up. So that was my comments on that. The only other thing I wanted to say is that we heard yesterday and you've probably already mentioned it earlier on in whatever episode this goes to air at, that the crash of a C-130 from Colson. It was over here in Australia fighting fires, and it was down in the snowy mountains, and it's unfortunately come to grief, killing the three on board, and the plane was destroyed by fire. It had just released its load, apparently. Whether it was in smoke or something, I don't know. The visibility over here in places have been atrocious. If it's not dust, it's smoke. We had rain in the Sydney suburbs here last night, and the water was brown with the amount of dust that's in the air. In some places, it's the visibility is 100 meters in smoke. So it's been quite atrocious over here, but it was sad to hear of that accident. So thanks anyway, and this is Greg out. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Did he say snowy mountains?
Yeah, that's right.
I think he did. All right. Thank you very much for all the information regarding the battery sulfur. What is it? Sulfur cathode batteries?
Lithium sulfur.
Lithium sulfur. Interesting.
Yeah. You were saying it was the cathodes that crack that causes the runaways, but...
Well, that sounds like it holds some promise for an advance in battery technology. And
yeah, but it's going to smell like rotten eggs every time you try and.
That's the downside.
Nick's using his phone again. Gosh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, folks.
All right. Well, thank you, Greg, for that. And you know what? I think it's right about time now for us to do this week's installment of the Old Pilot's Plane Tales. So without further ado, let's play that.
The old pilot's plain tales. The Airman's Cross. I was recently visiting a prehistoric monument. No, not Captain Jeff, but a henge within which is a circle of standing stones. It's just west of Amesbury in the beautiful countryside of Wiltshire in England. Its history stretches back to the Neolithic period, and it forms part of a complex set of earthworks that have been of great interest to archaeologists for centuries. Indeed, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is more commonly called Stonehenge. My wife and I both remember the days as children when we had unfettered access to the stones and could freely walk amongst them. But there is a more recent monument there that I had no knowledge of. It's called the Airman's Cross. The presence of this memorial to an early pioneer of aviation so clearly demonstrates the short period in history that flying encompasses, particularly when standing beside a monument that goes way back into prehistory, some 4,000 years. The Airman's Cross was erected in 1912, only 108 years ago, a mere 9 years after Wilbur first took to the air near to Kitty Hawk in North Carolina. Despite the experimental nature of flying back in the early 1900s, I find it quite surprising that, even though earlier heavier-than-air flying machines were fragile, and there was little understanding of the principles of flight, that more serious accidents didn't occur, and that it took 5 years before this burgeoning industry suffered its first fatality. The unfortunate chap was a passenger of Orville Wright, who had been conducting demonstration flights for the U.S. Army at Fort Myer. The brothers had an Army contract to build and fly a two-man flying machine, which would then have to complete a set of trials over a measured course. In addition to the contract worth $25,000, about $600,000 in today's money, the Wright brothers would receive a $2,500 bonus for every mile per hour of speed faster than 40 miles an hour that they could achieve. There was a committee of 5 officers to evaluate the Wright flyers' performance, including First Lieutenant Selfridge, who had in fact designed his own aircraft, Red Wing. Red Wing was the first aircraft to fly in Canada, but Baldwin, the pilot, had crashed it. However, Selfridge successfully piloted its successor, White Wing, eventually completing flights of several hundred yards. Orville had already demonstrated their new Wright military flyer successfully several times, carrying a major aloft for an hour and a quarter in a single flight. When Selfridge climbed into the flimsy machine, Orville took off and began a gentle orbit before things began to go wrong. He described the flight in a letter to his brother.
On the 4th round, everything seemingly working much better and smoother than any former flight, I started on a larger circuit with less abrupt turns. It was on the very first slow turn that the trouble began. A hurried glance behind revealed nothing wrong, but I decided to shut off the power and descend as soon as the machine could be faced in a direction where a landing could be made. This decision was hardly reached. In fact, I suppose it was not over 2 or 3 seconds from the time the first taps were heard until 2 big thumps, which gave the machine a terrible shaking, showed that something had broken. The machine suddenly turned to the right, and I immediately shut off the power. Quick as a flash, the machine turned down in front and started straight for the ground. Our course for 50 feet was within a very few degrees of the perpendicular. Lieutenant Selfridge, up to this time, had not uttered a word, though he took a hasty glance behind when the propeller broke and turned once or twice to look into my face, evidently to see what I thought of the situation. But when the machine turned head first for the ground, he exclaimed, "Oh, oh," in an almost inaudible voice.
The crash had been caused by a failure of the right-hand propeller, which hit a wire bracing the rear vertical rudder and then came away completely. The wire was ripped out of its fastening, and without restraint, the rudder twisted horizontally and forced the aircraft into a steep dive. Although Orville shut off the engine and fights the aircraft to soften the impact, the flyer hit nose first and threw both men forward against the remaining bracing wires. Selfridge's head struck the wooden framework as he was ejected from the wreckage, and he was rendered unconscious. Orville was also badly injured, fracturing his hip and breaking his leg, plus several ribs. These injuries would trouble him for the rest of his life. Sadly, Thomas Selfridge had fractured his skull, and although he underwent surgery, he died a few hours later without regaining consciousness. The unfortunate lieutenant was buried with full military honors in Arlington National Cemetery, adjacent to Fort Myer. Following the crash, and as a direct result of Selfridge's death, the pilots of the U.S. Army were instructed to wear large, heavy headgear, reminiscent of early football helmets, for protection. It was nearly a year later before the next victim to aeronautics was to occur in this new adventure of flying. The Wright brothers were keen to dispel any reluctance in Europe to accept that they had developed a working heavier-than-air aircraft. Wilbur sailed for France with a machine to demonstrate the flyer to the public, and more specifically the military, whilst Orville was doing the same at home. The European flights impressed everyone, with Wilbur giving rise to a procession of officers, journalists, and statesmen. Before returning to the States, Wilbur had a European business agent and had already set up a factory in Le Mans building Wright flyers. Eugene Lefebvre was the chief pilot for the French Wright Company. A talented engineer, accomplished sportsman, and cycling champion, he was one of many French sportsmen attracted to aviation because of the adventure and the competitive spirit that animated the first meetings of aviators. He promoted the Wright aircraft by entering in air races such as the Grande Semaine d'Aviation at Reims, and with Louis Blériot and Hubert Latham represented France in the Gordon Bennett Trophy. This event started with poor weather, but shortly after 10 a.m., Maurice Guffrey made the first attempt to get away. His little red REP monoplane furiously spluttered and struggled across the gummy field. Back and forth it went, but despite the roars of encouragement from the huge crowd, it wouldn't come unstuck. Guffroy retired in disgust when his 15-minute time limit was up. Towards the end of a disappointing first day, the weather eased, and Lefebvre took off to give the crowd an early display of stunt flying. The New York Times described his maneuvers thus: Lefebvre came driving at the crowd tribunes, turned in the nick of time, went sailing off, swooped down again, till he made the flags on the pillars and the plumes on the ladies' hats flutter, and so played about at will for our applause. For this he was fined $4 by the judges for displaying excessive recklessness and daring. Only 9 days after the end of the Reims event, Lefebvre was killed in a crash at Juvisy when the plane he was testing dropped to the ground from a height of 20 feet. This qualified him to take his place as the first pilot to die whilst flying an aircraft, and the second ever casualty to aviation. As the sport of flying grew, so did the distressing stories of accidents. And Capitaine Ferdinand Ferber, a French scientist and army officer, was killed in a taxiing accident Not long after Eugene Lefebvre, Leon Delagrange had his skull broken when he fell with his machine from a height of 65 feet and was crushed underneath the wreckage. He had been turning at high speed against the wind when the left wing of his Blériot monoplane broke and the other wing collapsed. The machine plunged to the ground and Delagrange was caught under the weight of the motor. Harriet Quimby had the dubious honor of becoming the first woman pilot to die when she and her passenger fell from their aircraft whilst 1,000 feet above the ground at the third annual Boston Aviation meet in 1912. Slowly the list grows until also in 1912 we come across the name that can be found on the Airman's Cross at Stonehenge, that of Captain Eustace Broke Lorraine. My discovery of the cross, not really a discovery, as thousands if not millions of others will have passed by it whilst visiting Stonehenge, was really the kernel that started this tale, but I would have just filed it away had it not been for an interesting fact in Captain Lorraine's background. Reading about him, my curiosity was piqued by the name of a senior officer under whom Lorraine had served, Colonel Trenchard. The Lorraine family could be said to have been of the aristocracy, with a good smattering of knighthoods being awarded to the family. Eustace's mother was Lady Frederica Mary Horatia, nee Broke, and his father, Rear Admiral Sir Lambton Lorraine, 11th Baronet of Kirkhull in Northumberland, an estate which the family had owned since the 15th century. Eustace was the oldest of 4 siblings. He had a brother and 2 sisters, and as such was the heir to Bamford Hall and the estate. As one might expect from the family at the time, Eustace received a privileged education at Eton and entered the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. He was gazetted as a second lieutenant with the Grenadier Guards on the 5th of July 1899 and promoted to lieutenant in May 1900. He fought in the First Boer War and awarded both the Queen's Medal and the King's Medal with additional clasps. I mention this to show that he wasn't just a rich dilettante, but a fighting man. Having been wounded in 1903, he almost left the army, but was persuaded to remain and take the post of Assistant Commandant of the South Nigeria Regiment. In 1906, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Order. It was in 1908 that he met Lieutenant Colonel Hugh Trenchard of the Royal Scots Fusiliers whilst serving under him in Nigeria in the West Africa Frontier Force. The two became friends and continued to correspond once Eustace had returned to England. It was whilst he was in Africa that Lorraine first heard about Louis Blériot and his flight across the English Channel. An adventurous man, the news stirred his interest, and on returning to England, he managed to persuade the War Office to pay for his flight training until he was good enough to be granted the Royal Aero Club Certificate number 154, dated the 7th of November, 1911. By this time, Trenchard was serving in Ireland, but Eustace kept him abreast of his progress, and in the summer of 1912 he wrote to him, urging him to also take up flying. Trenchard was greatly impressed by Lorraine's words, which read, "You've no idea what you're missing. Come and see men like ants crawling." At that time, Trenchard was looking for a new direction, and after reading Lorraine's letter, he decided to try to learn to fly himself. By now, Captain Lorraine had been attached to No. 2 Company of the Air Battalion, which was based at Lark Hill on Salisbury Plain, which, following the formation of the Royal Flying Corps later that year, was designated No. 3 Squadron RFC. Less than 2 months later, and exactly 13 years since he joined the army, Lorraine and his observer, Staff Sergeant Wilson, were flying a Newport monoplane out of Lark Hill on a routine practice sortie. They were executing a tight turn when the aircraft fell towards the ground and crashed. Wilson was killed outright, and although Lorraine was speedily transported to Bulford Hospital in a horse-drawn ambulance, he succumbed to his wounds only a few minutes after arriving. Lorraine and Wilson were the very first Flying Corps personnel to die in an aircraft crash whilst on duty. Later in the day, an order was issued, which stated, "Flying will continue this evening as usual," a tradition that has continued. At the site of the crash, a stone cross memorial was placed in the middle of the grass island at the junction of two roads. The inscription reads, "To the memory of Captain Lorraine and Staff Sergeant Wilson, who, whilst flying on duty, met with a fatal accident near this spot on July the 5th, 1912, erected by their comrades." His body was returned to Bramford Hall, and a funeral cortege proceeded through the village, accompanied by a detachment of Grenadier Guards, to the church where he was buried with full military honours. The title and lands moved on to Eustace's brother, but he died childless, so the baronetcy died with him. Had it not been for the accident on Salisbury Plain, the village of Bramford could have been a very different place today. The cross has been moved slightly, but it's still within sight of its old location. At Eustace's suggestion, Colonel Trenchard went on to become a pilot himself, certificate number 270, and he served the Royal Flying Corps with such distinction that by 1917 he had become the Chief of the Air Staff. It was through Trenchard's determined persuasion that on the 1st of April 1918, the United Kingdom became the first country in the world to have an independent air force, and he is rightly known as the father of the Royal Air Force.
I thought you were.
Yeah, very good. No, I'm just the son of the Royal Air Force, not the father.
I love the Navy hymn that you had in there toward the end.
Oh yeah, no, it is a maritime hymn, I know, but
there's a verse,
yeah.
at least in our hymnals, with the air. There's like the first verse is the Navy on the sea, and then there's one about, I guess, the ground troops or something, and then the third verse I think is the one about the those in peril in the air. So
Exactly right, and it's a favorite, funnily enough, at funerals. But, no, I think it's great. That lovely story. Without that young man encouraging Trenchard to follow him into the air, the Royal Flying Corps and the Royal Air Force might have been very different animals today. So that's the reason I loved it, and I love the accidental discovery for me, not for everyone else, because lots of other people knew it was there, of the Airman's Cross, and then realizing there was a connection to Trenchard. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. I love it when that happens. A bit of fate.
Yeah, absolutely. Great story.
Thanks.
All right. Shall we move on with some more feedback?
You bet.
Sure.
All right. Let's see. It looks like 3.
Sorry. Before you move on, I just wanted to shout out to Greg Willits, very nice chap who did the voiceover for Orville Wright. So I think he sounded exactly like Orville. In fact,
I thought I recognized that voice.
Yeah, if I hadn't have known, I would have thought it was Orville. Actually,
I was going to say that wasn't actually Orville. That you dug up some old recording tapes.
Dug up old Orville.
Made them sound old Orville. Yes.
No, but I think it was a perfect copy of his voice. So congratulations, Greg, and thank you very much indeed for taking time out of your busy day to do that for me.
I will have to thank him as well for his help.
I mean, he doesn't listen.
I don't know. Probably not.
In
I mean,
case you
who has 3 hours to listen to a show every week?
Well, he said he doesn't. He seems to be very busy.
Uh-huh. He's lying to you.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. And if you're not lying and you're actually hearing me right now, Greg, give me a call. We'll see. That's the test.
We'll test. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll get a call like 3 years from now when he gets to this episode.
You told me to call. Item 3 from Kevin. I discovered the APG a few years ago and was immediately afflicted with a syndrome. I always had dreams of flying, but never got around to doing anything about it until Christmas 2018, when I was given a gift that ended up being very expensive for me. A discovery flight at a local flight school. I then found and joined a flying club, hired an instructor, and I was on my way. While passing through the ATL on my way to Chattanooga, I so rudely accosted Captain Jeff on his way from one gate to another. I hope I wasn't too much of a bother. Yeah, it was kind of embarrassing. No, it wasn't a bother at all. I always loved the...
He just thought he was being called to the chief pilot's office again.
Yeah,
apparently
like
that's
what?
they think every time.
Yeah, did I do something wrong again?
It's a regular visitor there.
It was great to say hello and shake your hand and tell you that I had a whopping 8 hours in my logbook. This past Monday, January 20th, I flew out of my home airport, KFWA, that's Fort Wayne, in the club's 172 to meet a DPE. That's what's the D stand for again? Designated
Pilot Examiner.
Examiner at a nearby airport. I returned later in the day with a hole punched to my student pilot certificate and a temporary private pilot certificate. Yay! Way to go. Nice job.
I'm glad you're all clapping. Sorry, not clapping. Because I had no idea.
Came as a surprise to us a little bit there.
I had no idea what having a hole punched in your certificate meant. I thought perhaps he'd been banned from flying.
I never got a hole punched in my student pilot certificate.
I was going to say, I never
feel
got
like
a hole punched either.
Maybe it's figuratively speaking.
Yeah. Like when you go to the DMV and you get a new driver's license and they punch a hole in your old one.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks for that.
Or your passport. Yeah. Your passport comes back with a hole punched in it.
Or like my ex-girlfriend punching a hole in the wallboard or the drywall.
That's
that wasn't a metaphor. That actually happened.
Any girlfriend that can do that is probably worth leaving.
Just kidding, of course. Thanks to you and the APG panel for a great show and unknowingly getting me through. Thanks again. Always looking forward to the next great show, Kevin. And he is up there in Auburn, Indiana. And great to hear from you, Kevin. And I told him, I responded right away and said, stories like yours are how I know what we're doing with the APG podcast is worth doing, Kevin. Thank you for taking the time to let us know how you progressed. I can't wait to share it with the rest of the community. So we just did.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Very exciting.
We like good stories like this.
Yes, we do. And we're hearing more and more of them all the time, which is a really heartening thing. Not disheartening, but heartening. Sam, number 4. First, I would like to say that I really enjoy the show, but I can't say that, to be honest. No, wait a minute. I would like to, here, let me start over. I would like to say that I really enjoy the show. I started listening to the full-length episodes after being introduced to your content by Captain Nick's Plain Tales. Your shows are the perfect background to a watch on my general cargo ship, where I am currently serving as a chief officer. One of my favorite plain tales featured DP Davies, the test pilot. I would like to bring your attention to a series of interviews with him on the Royal Aeronautical Society SoundCloud, where he discusses his life and work. They are a good listen if you haven't come across them before, and then he gives us the link to that. The RAS website is a goldmine, which also features interviews with Eric Brown and others. It's really worth a trawl if you enjoy aviation history. Thanks for all your hard work and accuracy on the show. Huh.
Yeah.
What?
I think he's questioning our accuracy there. I see that it's a little.
It should have been a question mark, not an exclamation. Yeah. Kind regards, Sam. He's currently on passage in Estonia to Scotland, usually residing in London. And then, Nick, I believe you were communicating with Sam?
Well, I couldn't let that one pass without passing Sam a quick thank you. Yes, you're quite right.
Okay. And you you have indeed found this treasure trove and have used them in a couple of the plane tails, including the DP Davies and the Winkles tails. So that's awesome. Thank you very
brilliant.
much.
Lovely that you've managed to actually find plain tails and then the APG. Usually it's the other way around. And we all trust you have a safe passage. So thanks very much indeed, Sam. And when you're in London, if you get bored, give me a shout and let's get together and have a beer.
I want to go too.
Mm-hmm. Well, give us plenty of notice then, Sam, or better still, sail to Atlanta if you can do that.
Yeah.
Is there a port in Atlanta?
Probably not.
No.
Yes, the port of Atlanta. No.
With all the cargo ships.
Yeah. A lot of it's a secret port.
It's close though. It's Savannah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that is a very large port, actually.
It is a very large port.
Yeah.
So it is a possibility, actually.
Yeah.
Close enough that we can make it a very short jaunt down there.
Oh yeah, that'd be definitely worth it. This one, item 5 from Dave. He has a question, I believe, and it's an audio question. So let's see. I think I should push this one. No, I don't hear anything. All right, let's try it one more time.
Hi everybody, it's Dave from the UK. I hope you're all well. After realising I'll never have a voice for radio like the main man Micah, I'll never be quite as smooth as him. I think I'll give audio feedback another go. My question's based around the transition from military to civil aviation, and it's directed mainly to, obviously, Captain Jeff and Captain Nick. I'm just interested to know what the transition is like from flying something like an F-18 to then jumping onto an A340. Obviously, it's not just a sudden thing. There's a lot of training involved, but I'd like to know what that training involves. And similarly, from the experience that Captain Jeff has, obviously it's not going to be quite as technologically advanced jumping from the military to the coal burners that Acme use, but it'd still be interesting to find out exactly what the process is. There's an awful lot of talk nowadays about the price of training. You want to start from scratch, you've got to do your PPL, and then it's quite expensive. Some people talk upwards of £100,000 to become an airline pilot. I'm just wondering, if you're already a trained military pilot, do you still have to pay, or are you taken on at a certain level and then just trained up for working in the civilian aerospace industry? I imagine most of the training originally that you pay for when you start out is based around general airmanship. I could be wrong, I don't know, but if you could shed any light on that, I'd appreciate it. Once again, thanks for the superb show. I enjoy every minute of it, and it makes my monotonous days just that little bit bearable. All the best. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Great question. Not sure about Nick, but I can speak for myself. Not a huge transition for me, because my first assignment in the Air Force was flying the C-141B, which is a large transport type of aircraft, very much like it's like an airliner. Then after that stint, I was an instructor pilot in the T-37. And that's quite a bit different from, the kind of flying that we do in the airliners. But I'd already had the experience with the big jets, so it wasn't in crew concept and that kind of thing. So it wasn't so foreign to me. I have a feeling it's going to be a different story for Nick. But I can tell you, regarding your last question, as far as having to go, get all your ratings and spend a lot of money on that. I think that most, if not all, of the military pilots that are hired now, at least at Acme and other major U.S. carriers, that it's not necessary. You take an examination in the military to get it's called an equivalency exam, where it's a very easy test where you are just basically answering multiple choice questions, and then if you successfully complete that, then you go to your FAA FSDO. What does that stand for? Flight
Flight standards.
District office, flight standards district office, or
I think
something like that. Anyway, we just call it the FSDO, and then they give you the documentation, your certificate, and that kind of thing. So it's pretty easy peasy, and no need to go out to one of these ATP schools or whatever to spend lots of money. Now, there were some people in my time when I was interviewing with the airlines back in the 80s that went out and got their full ATP airline transport pilot certificates. And at that time, people were spending maybe $1,000, $2,000 to do that. I'm sure it's a lot more now. But it wasn't necessary. I didn't do it because I did some research and found that it wouldn't be required for me at that time anyway. Having an ATP, a full ATP, was not a requirement. It is now. So I guess the current day people are probably having to spend some money on that. So just a little bit of money, nothing compared to the amount of money people like Dana had to spend to get all the qualifications and certificates and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so it was an easy transition for me, Dave, and now I'll let Nick kind of fill in the blanks for going from the fast jets, single seater kind of experience to crew concept and flying big air transports.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, the boxes to tick really were getting a civil license. And when I started, you still had to do the full ATPL 14 exams in 2 days. So that took about 6 months of training, which I did most of it correspondence course. And then time became a bit compressed. So I did 2 of the hardest subjects on a residential, short residential course. And then sat the exams just a few weeks after I'd left the service and passed all those. So that was great. And then because I'd flown, actually, the rules have changed. Nowadays, if you've done most of your flying on fighters where they consider the thrust line to be on the center line of the aircraft, you'd need to do a twin-engined handling with engines on the wings, stuck out there. That wasn't really a requirement when I went through. The Phantom was considered sufficiently asymmetric to be able to use that time without another recoil. But I had, even though I had to get a civilian instrument rating, so I went up and did 14 hours flying in a PA 34 or something. What's that, Dana? Some kind of
I think that's a Seneca.
Seneca.
Seneca
sounds favorite.
I think the 32 is the Seminole.
Yeah, and so I did an instrument rating. That cost, and the ground training fees cost me about 14 grand, I guess. And that gave me the license. I was lucky that with coming up to 5,000 hours jet time, that I was able to get into an airline like Virgin Atlantic straight away, whereas other guys would have to perhaps get more experience on jet and more experience in different types. So I was lucky. I was straight in there. That's the academic side of things. The practical side of things, funnily enough, the flying really wasn't a problem. Civil airliners are not hard to fly. They're not meant to be hard to fly, and they're, generally speaking, particularly the modern ones, they're not hard to fly. So I didn't have any problem learning to fly the airplane. I can be nice to people sometimes, and I had flown with a crew member for a lot of my career. So, and since most of our operations are 2 pilot, it's not that much different having a pilot and a navigator, having a pilot and a pilot. So I didn't find that a big step. No, the hardest thing really was learning the mindset of civilian pilots and the strategic element that goes along with flying really long trips. There are elements of that you don't think about. Depressurizations, fuel considerations, engine failures, all that kind of stuff. So that was a big learning curve. That was the hardest bit, and also just shrugging off my military expectations and realigning my mind to what happens in a civilian company. So that was the hardest bit, but it wasn't very hard. So personally, I didn't find it too difficult. Others did. Others found it an absolute breeze and did much better than me. So I guess I was middle of the road.
That can't be right. You're
That's
so modest.
True, very true.
All right. Very good. I think we answered all those questions.
I hope so. That's a good question, Dave.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. And I'm sure that that's the same, a lot of people are probably wondering the same thing. So thank you for asking it. Dana, why don't you take this next one?
Sure.
From Mike.
I'll be happy to, Mike. Thank you for writing into us. Well, we're talking about something again we were talking about earlier, a little bit of flight attendant information here. A few quick questions. What are the grooming standards for the flight attendants, specifically the males at Acme Airlines? I was on an Acme flight last night, and one of the flight attendants had the side of his head shaved, but the top was long and pulled up into a man bun. He also was wearing 2 earrings. Why are the grooming standards different between the pilots and the other flight crew members? I'm assuming Acme wouldn't let their pilots do this. I could see Acme allowing their male flight attendants to have beards, but other than that, I would think that the same grooming standards would apply to everyone. In my opinion, he just did not project the professional image that I have become accustomed to at Acme Airlines. Jeff and Dana, what are your thoughts? Maybe I'm just becoming an old fat. Thanks for all the hard work each and every one of you put into the show. Sincerely, Mike.
Mike Cochran, the guy that gave us those wonderful Yeti tumblers or whatever you call those things.
I don't know if you want me to say his last name. Mike Cochran.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Mike Cochran. Thank you.
Everybody knows Mike Cochran.
Mike Cochran. Jeff, why don't you go ahead with that one?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm wondering, Dana, do you think that maybe that was like an Acme regional flight? I mean, have you seen anybody with the whole side of his head shaved?
I have not. I've seen some questionable standards
Yeah.
at Acme that have now become more commonplace these days, but I have not seen that type of an individual.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that male earrings are approved, but to be quite honest with you, Mike, I don't have access to that manual to see what their policies and procedures are as far as grooming standards. I do know that if a flight attendant is going to ride on the jump seat, they have to have certain grooming standards. However, I've never actually gone into their manual saying, all right, you don't look appropriate, because I don't feel as though unless somebody's really in a way out of bounds, I don't really feel it's my position to really critique that employee group per se. I do know that they're allowing more now.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure.
I have noticed that the new generation of flight attendants are obviously they must have changed the rules because they're looking different than what we're used to seeing.
Oh yeah, there was some fairly outrageous, what I would consider outrageous haircuts in my outfit, and my outfit's fairly relaxed, and that was before I left. So completely shaved at the side, big bloody stack of hair on top, shaved completely up one side, and a flop of hair. But that's a modern or a youthful style of haircut. So who's to say?
I think also they've relaxed their standards on tattoos, because I think I recall now seeing some people, sporting tattoos, or maybe they allowed them, but they wanted you to have like your sleeves covering them or whatever. But I think that they've relaxed that standard as well. But the question as regarding, are the standards the same for the flight attendants and the pilots? I'd say no. The pilots, we have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Comply with a higher or a different, more strict standard of grooming than everybody else. Like beards, for instance, we can't have beards, but I noticed that flight attendants and ramp personnel and that kind of thing, they're allowed to have beards.
Mind you, who sort of monitors the flight deck dress standards? Because I know the cabin crew get inspected by their senior member before each flight. Who does a uniform inspection? I mean, it would be the captain.
Yeah.
And do any of the captains ever pull up a first officer for having an unironed shirt or dirty shoes or something?
It is our responsibility, Dana. You can
Yes.
answer that. It's our
Yeah,
responsibility.
absolutely. It's our responsibility. But on the same token, as a very well seasoned first officer, I must admit I flew with several captains that did not meet the standards, and so that's a real hard position to be in. If somebody's blatantly shows up to work and they haven't shaved in 2 days, I might say go into the bathroom in first class, pull out your shaving kit and shave. But as far as polished shoes or wearing their hat, I have the only time I've ever had a first officer that had a hat issue was that he wore it all the time. I mean, I kid you not. Even down, I remember it very vividly. It's the Embassy. Is it Embassy Suites that has that free breakfast in the morning?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I came down for breakfast, and there he was sitting with the hat on. Nothing
Just the
else
hat?
on, but the hat having breakfast.
Naked
Then we
except
had like
for
a
hat.
3-hour delay.
But he had something else on underneath the hat, did he?
Yeah, nope. I don't know if he was worried about being bald or what,
Naked with a
bald or
hat
whatever.
No,
but-
we're talking about, did he have any other clothing on?
Oh yes, he had other clothing on.
Did he have his
a
uniform on or just regular civilian clothes?
No, that would have been funny. No, he had his uniform.
We're
on.
trying to get the picture here.
I was
when I say
imagining
didn't have the
naked.
outfit,
Well,
he
first
didn't
I was
have his jacket
imagining
on.
like
I
regular
bet you were.
street clothes hat, and then I was imagining naked or like underwear hat.
I guess I didn't say that very well, did I?
It's just where our
Just
minds
hat.
go immediately, Dana. It's fine.
Yeah. Granted, I should know. I should mind my P's and Q's a whole lot better. But we seriously had a 3-hour delay and was sitting on the airplane
With his hat on?
had his hat on for 3
When he's actually flying the airplane, does he have his hat on too with the headset over the top of it?
It didn't go that far, but I'll tell you, it was.
Oh, that's a shame. That's so 50s.
So it's quite the opposite. And I did finally say something to him. You can take your hat off.
I would rather have that guy than the guy that never wears his hat. Yeah. I'd actually have some fun with that guy that wearing the hat all the time. That's
Yeah,
cool.
you can it's all as you know, Jeff. It's all in your attitude and the way you treat your peers and how you can approach something like that. You can say, if you're a jerk, which neither one of us are. Can't speak for Nick. Normally kidding Nick. But
No, I'm a jerk.
joking way, hey, listen, I realize blah blah blah, and just try to do it. Just play it off in a nice way. But I haven't really had to cross that bridge yet, fortunately.
That's
The
good.
only thing I would say is that, generally speaking, our cabin crew were held to a higher standard than the flight deck. And it used to annoy me that some of the other pilots I flew with would go back into the cabin to use the toilet or go to rest or whatever, dressed as they would do sitting at the controls. And I wouldn't care what they were doing if they were some guys took their shirts off and just sat there in a t-shirt, and other guys, buttons up, whatever. But they would then stroll into the cabin looking like that, and I'm going, look, the passengers see you as a pilot, and the cabin crew look at you, and you're supposed to be just one above them in the hierarchy. If you're going to go back and be in front of our customers, you've got to dress appropriately, because the cabin crew will look at you sideways and start disrespecting you, and the passengers certainly will. So, and a lot of them just did not get that, didn't understand that concept, and it used to frustrate me.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I
Fortunately,
think any profession that you're in, if you're in a quote, sorry,
Just adds to the ambience.
Actually,
Speaking of the profession you're in,
what did they like? Did they do something to her machine or something? Or what's
yeah,
going
they're
on?
biting the cables. That's what it is. Causing all the problems.
She's laughing very hard about something.
speaking of professionalism,
'Cause we
Your
are
dogs
doing
come
it
running in, barking all of a sudden, and jump on your.
Right on cue.
They hit the cable for the headphones, and it tried to pull it out of my ear, and then it pulled it down on the floor, and I was attached to it still, and they're still barking. So I'm sorry about that. I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. Something about being professional
In your job.
in any
and-
profession. Anytime you're presenting yourself to the public in that capacity, you should probably be judging yourself to a bit of a higher standard there too, because it does send a message and a signal. So
Yeah.
it does not inspire much confidence when you're poorly groomed or I don't know, just not conducting yourself or carrying yourself in a professional way.
You know, and I would say, and add to that, Jeff, that the company does a pretty darn good job of hiring people that are going to really represent the company really well. So usually it's not an issue, and it's been very few people I've ever seen that don't adhere to standards as far as pilots go, and some of the really senior people that just have been around a long time, they tend to be the worst offenders, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I agree, Dana. I look at see some pilots from other outfits walking around airport terminals, and I'm thinking, overall, I think that the pilots at our company do represent the pilot force pretty well.
Yes.
Pretty as far as grooming standards are concerned. They can't fly worth a darn, but they look good.
Well.
That's the important
That's
thing.
all that counts.
That's right.
They're inspiring confidence with their
Yes,
appearance.
that's right. All right. Quick audio feedback from Aviator Tony.
Hello, APG crew. Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, Captain Dana, and Dr. Steph. Well, it's official. I've been diagnosed with the uber contagious APG syndrome. Not unlike how quickly the coronavirus has spread through Wuhan, the APG syndrome has shut down productivity, infected unwitting aviators in my circle, and I thank you for that. I truly enjoy listening to all of you banter back and forth about aviation headlines, listener feedback, and those wonderfully narrated plain tales. Cheers to you, Captain Nick, as I am sipping on some bourbon in your honor. I started listening to APG somewhere around episode 393, I believe, where I found myself driving to the LAX airport to start a trip sequence. I was embedded in SoCal traffic as I stumbled across your show when I suddenly found myself wiping away tears from my eyes as Captain Jeff read the farewell to Thomas Cook letter sent in by a loyal listener. All of you have something very special together, and I applaud you. Full disclosure, I too have been producing a podcast called Squawk Ident. It is a place where we discuss the journey that I and my guests have navigated in our airline careers. If any of you are so inclined to give it a listen, I'd appreciate your feedback. By the way, I love your episode cover art, Jeff. Here's hoping to our paths crossing sometime soon. Cheers, keep the dirty side down, and wishing all of you the best. From Aviator Tony and the Squawk Ident crew.
A little last swig of bourbon.
Aviator Tony.
Yeah, I listened to it. I hate it. Get off the air. Stop it.
You know what?
Go away.
I have
too
a bone
many
to
aviation
Tony.
podcasts.
I'm the bourbon guy. Nick's the Nick is the Scotch. Well, I also like Scotch.
Scotch
too.
and now gin.
Gin, yes.
I am only joking, Tony. I am going to listen to it, your very next installment, so make sure it's a damn good one.
I have not listened yet, but I do plan to. So.
I have listened to a little bit of it, and from what I've heard, everything is great. You're doing a great job, Tony. We'll put the link to his podcast, Squawk Ident, in
Have
the
you told
show
him
notes.
to take his head out of the bucket yet?
No, I haven't. But you've done that for me just perfectly.
You're joking. I haven't even heard it yet.
Wow.
Okay. All right. I don't know really.
Brilliant.
I have
But
no idea
no,
what
yeah.
he's talking about.
I have no idea what he's talking about either. So we apologize.
You need to interject here, HR.
Well,
Yeah.
HR doesn't understand what talking with
I
your head
have
in the
no idea
bucket
what's going
sounds
on,
like.
but We
I think
whatever
there's
it
some-
is, we apologize, Tony. And
I think there's some extra gin being consumed over in England at this moment.
Might be, could be. But no, I really appreciate your kind comments, T. Thanks very much. And good luck with your podcast. And I'm certainly going to take a listen.
You know, and he said some really, really nice things about
He
you,
did,
specifically,
really nice
Nick.
things.
And then you
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
treat him like that.
That's the bourbon in me.
Okay.
I feel like we're going to get another piece of feedback
not
soon.
really.
Well,
It's the-
I found the cure to APG syndrome.
I'm over it.
When Captain Nick personally insults you.
It's Nick
Actually,
drinking.
It was the old curmudgeon making an occasional comment.
Did somebody say APG syndrome?
Possibly.
Yes.
APG syndrome. Bad case. APG syndrome. All right. Haven't played that one in a while. All right. Let's see. I think that the next one, I think Steph should cover this one.
I think I should.
Yeah.
So, this comes from John in Perth, Western Australia. He says, "Good day, Captain Jeff." No one else, just Jeff. Firstly, I love your podcast. It makes my hour commute to and from work.
Wait a
way
minute.
more
Wait a minute.
enjoyable.
Wait a minute. Maybe I should do it because he didn't
Oh, yeah, I'm
address
sorry.
anybody
I'll-
else.
No, just
Okay,
kidding. We
start over.
know what you meant, John.
Yeah.
Good day, Captain Jeff from Perth, Western Australia. Firstly, I love your podcast. It makes my hour commute to and from work way more enjoyable. I look forward to the start of every show and finding out where you are in America. Now to the point of my email. Something that rocked me to my core when I was 16 and stole any hope I had of being an airline pilot, and that would be colorblindness. I went into high school trying as hard as I could to get top grades to keep my dream alive of being a pilot. I am by no means a top student, and school was quite frankly a struggle, but alas, I put in 100% and was getting to where I needed to be. Then comes the bombshell. I attended an information session so that I could get my piloting career up and away, pardon the pun, and met all the criteria needed of me to commence aviation at a high school level. Just a formality to do the medical before signing on the dotted line. My dream was about to become a reality, but then wham, the oh-so-gentle optometrist tells me so kindly, don't even bother becoming a pilot, you're colorblind and won't be able to. Oh, or a train driver, or an electrician. Oh, and one more kick, not even a firefighter. I walked out of that room the most dejected and beaten person. My dreams and quite frankly, my passion had disappeared before my very eyes, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it. Later on in life, I have tried to fight the Australian Army in regards to colorblindness not being the stigma that it used to be, and that the systems they use are outdated and antiquated. I took it as high as the officer in charge of defense, at that time, Angus Huston. This was all in vain, as I was basically told to go away as they had their needs without having to worry about people like me. Yet another kick in the guts. Now getting on, I hear you keep mentioning pilot shortages, and over in Australia and New Zealand, most airlines are starting up trainee programs. And interestingly, New Zealand have relaxed their laws on colorblind people flying. just
on four blind.
Sorry, there was a typo there. I just read right through it.
I love that. I think blind people flying is a great idea.
Yes,
Don't fly
colorblind.
on Air New
So oddly
Zealand.
enough, when I read through this earlier, because I did prepare, I just glazed right over that.
I didn't notice
even
it
it didn't
either.
even register that there was a typo there. So my apologies.
Well,
I
it's
didn't-
you going through your doctor's notes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I find those.
I didn't
typos
notice
way
it until
after
you
the
just read it and I went, what?
have relaxed their laws on colorblind people flying. That would be New Zealand. I have informed my wife I want to move to New Zealand, but that was met with a grunt. Furthermore, and I know you are not an advocate of it, but in a non-motion 737-800 simulator that QantasLink used to assess the suitability of pilots to fly the 737, I was able to do, as my instructor put it, quote, better than a lot of the qualified pilots did, quote, on the simulator. I put this down too, and while not the same, gives you the confidence to fly. The 737 is the iFly 737 on Flight Simulator.
Cool.
So, yeah. I guess what I'm asking is, could you ever see a future where colorblind people can get behind the controls of a commercial aircraft? After all, and I quote from the British Army, 79% of colorblind people can do what normal vision person can do without any issue. Anyway, I may have bored you to death by now, so I will
Hang on
sign
a
off.
minute, Jeff. I think you misread that. It
I
says
read it correctly this time.
79%
I
of colour
omitted.
blonde
That's
people.
the
So
second time
blonde
that typo
people,
occurred. I did catch the first time, and I did not read
blonde
it the first
people
time
can
either.
do what normal people
Thank
can
you.
do.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fair
Were
enough.
you blonde, Nick?
No, I am
Yeah.
getting pretty blonde now, though.
I was
Sorry,
born
John.
blonde.
Let me finish your email here. Anyway, I may have bored you to death by now, so I will sign off. Keep up the good work, and thank you for allowing me a glimpse into what would have been my dream. Warm regards, John Mann from Perth, Western Australia.
What a
So,
great letter. Love it.
yes, very nice. And gosh, that's not. Sounds like it was never put very delicately to him, huh?
No,
Just
I know.
kind
It
of.
sounds pretty
No,
rude.
sorry. No. Yeah, quite rude.
And we're being so sympathetic.
Yes,
Well,
we aren't.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to launch into some things that might be helpful for John here. Liz was kind enough to, because we have talked about this before. I think specifically I've talked about some of the US requirements for this. So if you go back to APG 310 and 143, way back on the Wayback Machine, the topic was covered. So since John is in Australia, I actually went and looked up what the Australia Civil Aviation Authority has to say about it, and that's what I'm going to go through here in the interest of time. If you need the US version, please check out episode 310 and 143 because I believe it was covered there. So what they say. So applicants for class 1 or 2 medical, there's basically a sequence that they'll follow for color vision testing. They want you to do the Ishihara pseudo-isochromatic plates. Those are the ones that most people are comfortable or familiar with. The circular plates with all the little colorful dots, and there's usually a number or something similar embedded in there that you're supposed to identify. If you fail that, then they go on to test you with the Farnsworth lantern test. And I had to look that one up. I think we've talked about it before as well, but it's basically for identifying signal lights at night is the reason why it was developed. But it's basically a combination of different red, green lights that they'll test, and you're supposed to identify whether they're the same or different. And also there's like white, yellow. It doesn't look at blue, green deficiency, I think, or blue color deficiency, but just those more common red, green deficiencies. So there's that one. And then if you do not pass that one, sorry, the dogs are back. You can be
right on cue.
That professionalism, right? You can be referred for a test determined by the Civil Aviation Safety Authority that simulates an operational situation. So a pass on any one of those tests will satisfy the requirements for the issuance of a unrestricted Class 1 or Class 2 medical certificate. I'm gonna have to let me kick them out, and then I will.
No, you're
continue.
fine.
Okay.
No, we can hardly hear anything.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's quite loud. Anyway, new applicants for a Class 3 medical certification are required to pass the Ishihara color vision test, and no additional or alternative color testing is available for that group. So I'm not sure how their Class 1, 2, and 3 medicals are somewhat. They seem a little bit different than ours, because that seems a little bit more restrictive. Perhaps they just don't offer the more advanced testing if you're just looking for that Class 3 medical. So, but that's what they have on the Australian Civil Aviation Safety Authority site. So hopefully that is helpful. I think in this case, or in these cases, we've always kind of recommended it's probably best to meet with a aviation medical examiner because they can talk you through what that process would be and what the restrictions that would be in place might be that might be more relevant to you. So it sounds like there is at least a method for trying to go through and sort out, okay, is this something that's really, truly problematic, or can you pass on an operational kind of like we do those demonstrated ability tests. So if you can do it in the real world and do it safely, might be something that you can get through. So.
That's what I recall when we have talked about this before, Steph, on previous shows. And I was kind of surprised. I didn't realize. I mean, I thought that Ishihara or whatever, what is it called?
Ishihara pseudo-isochromatic plates.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
Pit plates, I think.
Yeah, those things that I always think of when I think of color blindness tests. And I thought, that's it. If you don't pass that, then, oh, too bad. But I think we had one of our listeners say, oh, well, it turns out that, and then he talked about that Farnsworth lantern test.
Actually, I think was it Captain Al had some information about it as well. I think.
I think so.
Yeah, he might have been talking about that lantern test.
Yeah, and I'd never heard of that, and didn't realize there was anywhere to go if you didn't passed that first test. And yeah, so I think that, and I think we also talked about the fact that don't take no for the final answer. And that's kind of the lesson that I've learned from a lot of these medical issues. That
or don't take no as a final answer from someone who is not well versed in the aviation guidelines.
Right.
You always want to consult with someone who's specifically has that background and training. So
and even then, get a second opinion.
Yes, always get a second opinion, and then even a third too. So
yeah.
And be persistent, Yeah,
and don't forget, Captain Kirk beat the Kobayashi Maru test, so I'm sure you can beat that test. So now, honestly, no, he didn't.
That's
really
a different one. That's a different test, I think.
Oh, okay, all right. He had to cheat.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I'm thinking about my life in aviation and how important it is, and most of our warnings, although they're color coded, they're also well positioned, clear of each other, and usually have some written element to them as well, rather than just color. Certainly, on more recently designed aircraft. So I'm thinking that in future aircraft will probably, or colorblindness will probably be less of a problem, because it makes life a little simpler sometimes if you can distinguish between the urgency and warnings, because one is red and one is amber, for example. But I think if you can adequately read and overcome those issues, and you do that on a performance-based test rather than so it's down to your ability rather than your condition, then I think there's a chance you might be lucky or you might get through.
Yeah.
So just keep pressing. And even if you're given a no now, doesn't mean to say that no will still be relevant in a few years' time.
Sure. And I think at least here in the States, from what I know from the AME guidelines here, a lot of it does come down to light signals that they want you to be able to identify. So that's part of the operational color vision perception test, I think they call it here. So you have to be able to timely and accurately identify those in a field test. If for some reason you're not able to, you can get a third-class medical, I believe, with a restriction that says not valid for light gun use or night flying. I think it'll put both of those on there for you if I remember. Yeah, not day. What does it say? Not valid for flight during daylight hour. Well, let me try that again. Not valid for flight during daylight hours by color signal control is what it says. So nothing to do with night.
I mean, it's a very rare situation where you're going to be looking at that control tower and looking for a green light for landing clearance or a red light to say, nope, you're not allowed to land. But
certainly an airline, huh?
But
yeah,
but the only place I see where it might be an issue is identifying taxiway lights, runway lights, Pappy, Vazzy.
So hence the restriction at night as well.
Yeah, the patterns are usually pretty distinctive if you're well briefed and well prepared. And because we're always two-man operation, no one does anything on their own. You may have a restriction that you can't fly with another colorblind person,
right?
Or
colorblind,
or four blind
blonde
pilots.
Person, yes, no blonde people on my flight deck. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, John, I hope we didn't confuse you too much with that answer. But yeah, there's hope. And
actually, if you'll allow me real quick, we had one of our listeners in the Facebook chat room. Mitchell says he did the letter of demonstrated ability. So met with FSDO and hopefully did come up with flights. Or no, I'm sorry. Now I can't even get it right. I was trying to unmute before to say the acronym for FSDO, and now I can't even remember it.
It's the kind of dough you make fizzy bread out of.
Exactly. But anyway, met with the
Flight
FSDO
Standards
inspector.
District Office.
Thank you. And answered the color questions on a sectional, light gun signals from the run-up area, a short flight identifying colors on the ground, and turns out he only had a blue deficiency. So was able to get that letter of demonstrated ability. So it's possible.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks for the input from the chat room. And just another reminder, if you get a chance, follow us on social media and join us when we're recording live, because I think you'll have a great time with all the fantastic people that we have in our live chat rooms, both on Facebook Live and YouTube. And with that,
And finally, to John, I just wanted to say, please keep us advised how you get on, because I was making a few jokes at your expense, but I'm really interested to find out how your career progresses. So good luck with that.
Absolutely.
And our listeners will be as well, because there are certainly other folks out there with the same questions.
You're not the only one.
Yep. That is so true. All right. Well, we almost did it. Only have a couple that we didn't get to on today's show, but we'll move those on over.
Oh, no, I've studied mine.
Well, do you want to, let's see.
Yeah, I've studied it and everything.
Well, you'll have the answer all ready to go for.
It'll even,
I might not be there.
It'll be even better.
I might have left the show by then.
Wait a minute. Is Nick going to be on any future shows?
HR was planning on convening a meeting after today's show.
I wasn't sure if you'd notified
him.
him.
Really that short? Okay, I can get this done real quick.
Oh, come on. All right.
Can I really?
Nick, item 10.
Oh, you're very kind. So this is from G-Man Glaucus. And worst airplanes ever made? See below a link listing some of the worst airplanes ever built. There are some serious contenders here, but I saw a couple of interesting models. The DC-10, the AR-72, the Dash 8, the Little Brasilia, once flown by Dana, and even the MD-80. Were, brackets are, they that bad? I flew most of them many times and lived to tell the tale. Virgin Australia still operates the ATR-72, and Qantas has a few Dash 8s. What is the worst airplane you've ever flown as a passenger or a pilot? By the way, congratulations on your recent vehicle purchase, Nick. Great choice from a fellow 4-ring owner. Oh, is he a captain as well? I didn't realize.
No, that's 4 stripes.
Okay. All right. On another note, what do you have on your epaulet set? You don't have stripes, your rings. Otherwise, they wouldn't go round.
I know what he's talking about.
Talking about an Audi.
Your car.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. No, appreciate it. Yeah. On another note, there was a discussion about runway surface on APG 403. The other captain, Jeff, once sent a very comprehensive feedback on the differences between asphalt, tarmac, and others might be worth revisiting. Clear skies, tailwinds, and God bless. Cheers, Glaucus. Okay, Glaucus. Having 4 rings, yes, was a major influence on my car choice. It's possibly the worst list of aircraft I've ever had the misfortune to review. I couldn't find the author's name. I'm not surprised. And I guess that Money Poop or whoever they are just don't care. I could spend ages ripping it all apart. I'm going to try and be brief. It quotes many experimental aircraft that didn't make it into production. That's kind of the point. Some were purely to gain data, like the nuclear-powered aircraft, and were never intended to be mass-produced, like the Grumman X-29. That was supposed to be unstable and need a flight computer. That's how it achieved its remarkable maneuverability. Others were beaten by competitors, but that doesn't put them on the list of the world's worst. This bloke picks on the Douglas DC-10, stating it had an issue with its cargo doors that all opened outwards, not inwards, like regular planes. Has this bloke ever seen cargo doors in operation? They all open outwards.
No, that's not true.
Not on ours.
Oh, really? Go on. Who
No,
does?
they're inward.
Yeah.
Some open out, some open in. Depends. Airbus likes the Audi.
I mean, go on then. Who opens in?
Steph, I'm stopping you right there because I was thinking the same thing.
Great minds, Dana. Great minds.
I mean, come on. Who's opens in?
No, I just said Airbus prefers the Audi version.
Oh, we do. We're out. It's exactly right.
Yeah. The Mad Dog, they all open in.
Do they really? Well, how do you put cargo behind a door that opens in?
Well, there's no cargo right behind the door.
Oh, well, that's a completely stupid idea. He criticizes the original Wright Flyer for only managing a flight of 59 seconds and covering 852 feet, and for managing only 4 flights. Does he know that it was the very first heavier-than-air flying machine? No, obviously we know that. What was he expecting? A 3-hour flight across the Atlantic at Mach 2? And of the Embraer Brasilia, he calls it one of the worst passenger planes in history. Any comments, guys?
Yeah, I have a lot of comment on that. You never flew the airplane, and it's a very, very nice airplane. Very complex, but I enjoyed flying that aircraft quite a bit.
The Brasilia?
The Brasilia.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 105 Brazilians are still in airline service in North and South America, Africa, Europe, and the Asia Pacific area. He goes on about the SAL 340, very successful airplane. It was on the list for just being noisy, so I give up. By the way, the Mad Dog gets there in as well. So
yay!
What can I say?
I love the
We did
photograph
it.
of the ATR on final with the cruise ship in the background because that's the ship I was just on.
Oh, right.
It really was.
Yeah.
Well,
So I
that's
like the.
I can't
How
read the
about
name.
this? The Mad Dog was the unjustified airplane. I don't know.
I like the
I
one
agree with
person
him on the
helicopter
DC-10.
thing.
That was like one of my least favorite airplanes ever.
Wow. I thought the DC-10 was a great airplane.
No.
You know, it's
an airplane.
It is an airplane, and it depends on how this article talks about MD-80 being slow, cramped, and inefficient. But it depends on the airline and how they've configured it. I think, honestly, that the Mad Dog's seating is more comfortable than the 737s that we fly.
I've flown in one. It's quiet.
That would be my number one choice on the list. Is the 737.
Yeah. So I think it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
Yeah. So this guy doesn't know a thing. So
No.
thanks so much for sending that in. It gave me a chance to rant.
Yeah. That was a good rant.
I just zoomed in on the ship and I see somebody in their birthday suit on their balcony.
Really?
No.
Oh, was it you again?
It was me, yes.
But were you wearing your hat?
Yes, I had the hat on.
Good. That's the important thing.
I'm only kidding. This photograph's like 20 years old, I think.
Oh. All right. Well, thank you, Glaucus, for sending that in. I'm being sarcastic.
We liked it. Like I said, I like this one-person helicopter thing, the Devil's Hoverbike. Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah.
I think I would have a fun time riding that around the lake out here.
Yeah,
They
you
show it
would.
over water. That'd be fun.
I'd be careful getting on to anything that says the Devil's.
Well,
anything.
it's got the design flaw, and I think they're right on this, is that the rotor blades are underneath the platform that you stand on.
Oh,
It's a
that's
very
not
small
good.
platform.
Yes.
That's not good. One false step and that's it.
Exactly right.
Fish food.
Yeah.
And they were going to use it for American soldiers to fly around the battlefield. I could just some bloke landing in it and then thinking, well, I've now got to wait like 2 minutes being fired at while this propeller slows down so I can get off. Not going to happen.
Not a brilliant design.
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you for insisting that we do that, Nick. And so now next time, though, we're going to talk about a positive view on airplanes that we would fly from Peter in New York. Otherwise, we got to everybody else. So that's great. All right. Anything else before we move on to the closing of the show?
I'm ready.
All right. So let me see if I can turn on the microphone that we have in the oh, there it is.
Oh, hang on a minute. Liz is saying we didn't actually answer G-Man's question.
Oh, no.
You fail in your homework assignment, Nick.
Well, I did. I thought I made a very
What
good...
was his question?
Let
What
me
was the
ask-
worst airplane you've ever flown as a passenger or a pilot? You get to. I think we
All right.
kind of did.
DC-10.
Go on, Jeff. Well, yeah.
Worst? I don't know. They're all so good. I don't know.
I didn't do
Really?
my homework on
The
this.
Hercules. It's probably the most uncomfortable journey and the longest and most awful journey I've ever.
Oh, I know.
Oh, well, I
Being
mean,
on a Herc.
the
Down the
141 was at least as uncomfortable if you're riding in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one. Skyvan. I mean, they're fun to jump out of, but they're uncomfortable, noisy, hot,
Yeah, that would be-
noisy. Did I mention that they're noisy?
I've only ever heard about it, but yeah, I get it. That sounds good.
How was the sound level on that?
Shorts 360.
Steph?
Noisy.
Shorts 360. Have you been in one?
Oh, yeah. When I was with BizX.
Did you fly one?
I did not fly.
Just flown. Yeah, I didn't know BizX flew those.
We had,
interesting.
I think, about 18 of them. Somewhere around there.
Not comfortable, huh?
Not comfortable, not pressurized.
Oh.
Very hot. Very noisy. It's just, I think it's one of the ugliest airplanes. It's a flying box.
Yeah.
It's a shoebox. And so that was truly one of my least favorite airplanes.
Yeah, the flying box car.
Yes. Shorts 360.
Yeah, the 330 was even worse. It had that twin tail, but
Yes.
the 360 had a modern single vertical stabilizer. All right. Well, anything else? Is it okay, Liz, if we proceed?
Can we go home now?
Okay.
Yeah.
She
Okay.
has
You are
thumbs up.
home.
Yeah, she's giving me a thumbs up. Okay, great. All right, so let's revisit the bathroom over here. See if
Is he finished yet? Oh, he's moved out to the shower. You were too slow.
Hello. Hello, come on, it's time again. Why are you in the shower? Why do you do this every week?
We've run out of toilet paper again.
Yeah, okay, wait. All right. Come on over here. Tell us about Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plain tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com, or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Well, thank you for telling us about Slack. So you can go ahead and.
Was she sitting on the toilet while he did that?
Well, I don't know. Wait, hang on. I hear something.
Oh, no, really?
Oh yeah, Delta P.
Thanks for that.
Talking about having a little extra slack.
Talking about, yeah, there's a reason why Hillel does Slack. That's all I'm saying. So we also have, we're also on other social media. We like to call it the social meds. And Dr. Steph, can you do? I know your screen has frozen, but can you?
I'm
tell us
back.
about,
Yeah.
Oh, you
yeah.
are. Okay, great.
Yes.
Tell us about the social.
Hopefully
meds.
it will last. But if I drop out, you'll know why.
Okay.
Yes, social media. You can find us on Twitter. We are at APG Crew. That is our handle. You can find our individual Twitter information pinned to the top of that page. You can also head over to facebook.com/airline pilot guy and find us there, find more of the community there, share your aviation thoughts with us. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. And in fact, speaking of the Airline Pilot Guy website, let's see if I can share the screen. I'm doing this so well. All right, here we go. Chrome tab and boom and boom. There. Hopefully that is showing up. That is our beautiful website, airlinepilotguy.com, where you can learn more about the crew, the community, see the videos on YouTube, list of our podcasts. We have the Plain Tales special page, and you can subscribe to that, by the way, also as a separate podcast. Information about the Coffee Fund, the APG store, ways to contact us, and the all-important APG community calendar, and the little magnifying glass doohickey thing that allows you to do a search on our site if you're looking for something in particular. So check it out, airlinepilotguy.com. And until next time, wishing you all clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Oh, before we do that, I forgot to do this last time. Thanks to our producer, Liz in Toronto. Thank you very much for making it so much easier for me and
baby.
all that. So, and until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, buddy.
Smooth landings, everybody. See you next time.
I sounded like I've been drinking, and I haven't.
I have.
Unlimited visibility.
I've had like half of a 4% beer, so
I just need to let the bugs out quickly. Be right back.
I've been drinking a lot of water. I need to go.
Yeah, I've been drinking a lot of water too.
Yeah,
so.
I'll be right back.
All right. Oh, okay. Recorder's off.
Off.
Yay.
Never started. Sorry.
Oh, that's right.
My computer could not handle that.
I think
today.
there was
I
only
apologize
one. There was only one point where you were saying something. It was toward the very beginning when you came on, that it was like you were Skyping out a little bit, and it may have been because I think your computer was still doing that start sequence.
Sure.
And it was probably like under the stress of the load.
Too much.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this to me?
But that's
Your
all.
computer's getting stressed.
Yeah.
Send it to a therapist. It'll be fine.
I think I need to. It's it was
Nick-
not behaving well tonight, that's for sure.
Did you remember when she first restarted the computer? There was like a little hiccup with her signal. Do you remember that?
Yeah, just tiny. I
Okay.
thought it was a bit of Skyping.
Yeah, exactly. So at first I was thinking maybe that's my signal, and then I thought no, it's probably your computer going through
No.
all this thing.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. So otherwise, I don't think I'll need anybody's. Why can't I? I'm clicking on
That's
the
a
thing
good
that says
job,
new
Rob.
comments, and it's not moving.
Just
3 hours
scroll a little bit.
44 on mine.
How much?
3 hours 44 I've recorded.
Okay.
3:43 for me.
I can't tell what I did on mine because it's not gone. The display's gone.
I don't think we need to send it. Do you think, Jeff?
No. I was just saying. I think it was all good.
All right, I'll see.
It's all good. All good. But just save it just in case.
Yep.
All right. You guys talk to the chat room and such, and I need to do what Dana just did. I need to do what Hillel just did. Delta P.
Hi, chat room.
Shake hands with President Johnson. Check on nuts in the White House.
Hi, Robert. Thank you.
Let's see, who did we have here?
I just had to let the dogs out and I left the
Hamish.
door open. It's cold out there. Be right back.
Okay. Colin.
I think you said something earlier about anytime you come to DC. Yeah, my airplane doesn't come to DC anymore. Sorry.
Boo. Dr. Dan and I were having a good conversation about Utah and Utah accents. Mountain is the official pronunciation of mountain if you were from Utah.
Mountain.
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 Yeah, there's no T's in the middle of words. Any word that has a T in the middle, pretty much just forget about it.
I was just flipping through the pictures.
I went
and I
to
see a
Brighton on the mountain.
picture of Saab 340. That airplane was not nearly as good as the Brasilia because it did not have an APU.
Ah.
That was one of the failings of that airplane.
And I've got any good titles?
Let's see. Anybody in the chat room? Any ideas? Is Mike Kuiper still there? He usually comes up with some good ones.
Some good ones. I don't know.
Somebody had said something about the 411.
Yeah, what was that all about? I didn't understand.
Oh, that's
information.
411, that's information.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's why. Go ahead, Liz. Oh, why isn't Liz in there amongst us?
Because we're still
live.
We're still broadcasting.
Come on, Liz.
We're
Go
just
on,
live
tell it.
now. We're not.
Liz, come
Come
on.
on.
You can do it.
Hamish says he liked what was on your clapboard at the beginning. What was on his clapboard?
Man buns.
Liz
There you
the
go.
amazing, but there's always that.
Man buns.
Man
She
buns.
always is.
Yeah, well, we didn't really talk about man buns, did we? Oh, I guess we did a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Flight attendant.
Flight attendant grooming.
Yeah.
I feel like there was some things that were said, which I should have written down. Because in the moment, they occurred to me that they would be good show titles. And then I was like, I'll remember that for later. And now I'm sitting here going, what was that? Colorblonde.
Out of the way.
I really like the picture of this Dash 8 because it's not. It's a Q400.
What isn't
is
the
it in a
Q400
media?
a Dash 8?
No, it's a Q400.
I know, but the Q400 is a Dash 8.
It's
Dash
the
8,
quiet.
a Dash 8
Dash 8.
400.
Oh, is that what they call it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Michael, just think photographic. How can I get an image that means color blondness? Because I'm just going to go, duh.
Just show a pilot
You need
with
one of
blonde
the
hair.
photo isochromatic plates and then write blonde in it.
Yep.
I don't know.
Blonde pilot. Oh dear, looks like we're gonna. I can do a blonde pilot. That's no problem. That's easy.
Columbus
now-
Carol, yes, that
Or
very
just
may
blonde
well
and
be.
a
Maybe.
bikini and
A blonde
hat on.
pilot.
A blonde
with a
pilot.
white stick.
A blind blonde pilot. When you think of a blonde pilot, do you think of a male or female?
Oh, I was
Well,
thinking.
I get that all the time, though.
There
They
aren't
see
that
my
many.
name. They expect me to show up with blonde hair and a couple of how do you say it, bodacious tatas?
You're
That's
not
one way
allowed.
to say
I
it.
can't do one on bodacious tatas. I'm sorry.
That's what they always expect, and they see me show up, and they're like, "Oh my god, what happened? You got slapped with the ugly stick." And where's the girl I was expecting?
I don't think that's true.
No, it's not true.
I think you have bodacious tatas, Dana. See?
Family show. Family show.
Well, I've got plenty of pictures of blondes here.
To be fair, though, I was not picturing a female pilot.
Weren't you?
A blonde one? No,
I saw both.
I was picturing a blonde dude.
I knew you would be.
Mhm.
But to be honest, you do
With
that all the time.
surfboard in his hand, wearing his short shorts and out there surfing with the nice tan.
Yeah.
Nice abs.
Sunglasses on the head.
Let me have my my dreams here.
We're not going to take that away from you.
Please don't. Please don't. Was there anything in the news that was
Cockpit spills, Micah.
cockpit
says.
spills?
Oh yeah,
That's a good picture one. Good visual.
that would be a lot easier.
Let's see. Gail's saying something
Speak up.
about
Stirrups in the cockpit.
man buns. Stirrups in the cockpit. Yeah, family show. Oh my god, Dana on that one.
We've lost Dana.
No, because I almost spit the water out
He's
all over my
trying to
computer.
Keep the water in his mouth.
Another computer down. Computer down.
Good thing I have a towel sitting right here now.
Stirrups.
Wow, Gail's bringing out all kinds of different man buns with sippy cups.
Yes, Marshall, don't worry. HR is listening. This is the after show, though. It's okay. We let more things slide.
Yeah. Hats on at breakfast. Somebody eating breakfast with their hat and nothing else.
Yeah. How about a blonde pilot only wearing their... No, don't do that.
With a man bun. With
a man
with a
bun.
hat on top of the man bun.
On top of the man bun. It was like the
With
guy
sippy
trying to
cup.
smuggle the drugs underneath his toupee. You remember that one?
It looked really natural. Oh, that was a good one.
I've got a few man buns, but none of them are blonde, so that's a shame.
Photoshop man. Oh man. Okay. Well, I think we have some ideas to go
Yep.
on.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody in the chat room. We do appreciate it. And,
Oh yeah, it helps a lot. Because
thanks
I
for
haven't a
hanging out
clue
with
what we
us.
talked about.
That's because I have nothing better to do, Jeff.
I know. Sad but true.
Well, we're happy to be your entertainment.
It's true. All right. We'll see you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and sign off and do our post-show talk and
Debrief.
debrief
Get a
and
good whipping.
try to figure out when we're gonna record next week. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
See you next time.